night, people. Good night, good night, good night, good night, good night. Listen, anybody feeling independence? You feeling the spirit of independence? Listen, this is a big fight that is going on. Independence, republic, whatever. But my colors are almost independence. Listen, I'm Bajan through and through, Bajan through and through. It is a great night. Rameem 6070 says, greetings, loyal, patriotic opposition. Put God in the center of our nation's life. He has plans to prosper us. Rebuke the spirits of fear, corruption, greed, lust. Operation Rescue and Restore BIM, rise. Listen, that's the word I was thinking of, Rameem, when I was planning to come on. Rise, that word rise. And to say to Barbadians, it's time to rise. It's time to rise. It's time to get up. You know, we said when we started this program a couple months ago, we said, Bajans, wake up. But I have a feeling that a lot of people are up and they are just laying down right there in the bed. You know, I feel that people are up and laying down in the bed, but it's a time to rise up. Get out of the bed, go brush your teeth, put on your clothes, put on a little makeup or whatever you put on your face, and let's get going. Put on your war makeup, right? Put on your war makeup because we're about to go to war. So let me just welcome Rameem. You're a blessing. Thank you so much, Rameem. As you enter, please share the link far and wide and like so others may be enlightened on critical issues. Diana Seeley says, what is the essence of the subject being discussed? I think you're talking about the Samoa Accord, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that tonight as well. Just before our first guest comes up. And you want to know if you want to be more informed about the topic. Does it relate to us locally? If so, how and why? Yes. The first wave movement is in the house. How are you, Marcia? Umar. Umar, we can't wait to get you back on here. We have so many things in Barbados dealing with. Umar is in Trinidad. And Umar, I know you're logged on tonight. Please share to Trinidad. Tonight we have KEMAR. We have some great guests lined up tonight. We have our usual Mr. Caswell Franklin, you know, and he's always coming with nuggets of truth to us, and he's scheduled to be on. Our KEMAR Stuart is scheduled to be on as well. And we also have DAVIDA MAYNARD HOLLIGAN, and she's an attorney here in Barbados. And she's going to come to talk to us about what the Watch Out My Children subcommittee has been doing concerning the child protection bill. You know, we're not going to roll over and play dead. Not at all. Not at all. So we're going to talk about that. And then, you know, we also have in the house Arthur SCHAPER. And I have to make sure I pronounce that last name properly. And he's from Mass Resistance. And listen, Sir Alfred Benjamin, welcome. Good night. Do you all know who Alfred is? Alfred is a part of Mass Resistance. He's a field director. And Alfred is a kind of guy and his whole team who will go into a school, like a school board meeting, and shut it down. I think Umar is going to like to hear this guy. Umar Abdullah from Trinidad. Umar Abdullah, can I tell you something about Umar from First Wave Movement? Sir Alfred and Tracy. Hi, Tracy. Good night. Listen, Tracy. Umar and First Wave Movement. They have been having a protest for months at the Ministry of Education. I went to Trinidad and stayed with them for most of the day there. And Umar is Muslim, okay? And Umar and his entire the First Wave Movement, they camp out at the Ministry of Education and they collect signatures, ensuring that there be no books in the they don't put any books in the libraries or in the school that is going to be promoting any kind of pornography among the children. They sign against comprehensive sexuality education, and they camp out And I remember, Oswald, good night, Oswald. I got so tired. I was out there and I said, man, I need some coffee. So Umar, who is Muslim, decides to take me to get some coffee. And he says, I have some friend across the streets and they give us coffee all the time and support us. Listen, when I went to the coffee, to the little cafe, do you know the name of it? Can anybody guess? First wave, don't put it. ADG, good night. Good night, ADG. Do you know, listen, the name of this cafe was Coffee with Jesus. This is the Muslim that was taking me. DAVIDA is going like this. Listen, the Muslim who was taking me to get some coffee because we were camping out there at the Ministry of Education. And, Umar has all his signs laid down on the road. Naeem, I was there. Umar's wife was there. And when Umar was ready, this is the interesting thing about Umar, right? My Muslim comrade there in Trinidad. You know what they did? When it was time for prayers, Umar did his prayers loud, right there at the at the Ministry of Education. Umar, I'm telling out all your business tonight. I'm telling out all your. Umar stood there and shouted out loud. Well, it's not shouting. I guess let me not be disrespectful, but he bellowed out his prayers. Right there, you know how they pray, and I was like, did he just do that at the Ministry of Education? Yeah, and he was the same man who took me over to his friends to get free coffee with Jesus. I'm telling you a true story. Am I lying, First Wave Movement? Omar, am I lying? Omar, write in the comments if I'm lying. And so that is it. That is the Umar. That is the Umar that we are talking about. Okay, that's the Umar. That who just is so passionate about what is happening. And so tonight, I know he wants to hear people like DAVIDA Holligan and what is happening with the child protection bill. And she's getting ready to come on. And let me just welcome some more people. KEMAR, good night. Oh, the show is breaking up badly. Is it breaking up badly for anybody else? Anybody else? Is the show breaking up for anybody? My internet seemed fine. Can anybody let me know if the show is breaking up? Everton, KEMAR. Good night, Everton. Good night, loyal opposition. I'm in the house. Let's move the house of 30 of iniquity tonight. Oh, Lord. Listen, we need some answers. Yeah, we need them moved. We need them moved. We need them moved. You're right, Everton. Good night, Nigel Newton. Now, from St. Philip, he says, we are not automatically obligated to accept, respect, or cooperate with any government's decisions or directives. Correct. Good night, Edwin Price. Good night, Jefferson Sobers. Good night. Everybody says that it's good. Probably that person might need to check. See, First Wave said, I'm not lying, that they went in the coffee with Jesus to get the free coffee. And you know what the thing about it is, what was beautiful is how those the Christians there, how they embraced him, and they knew exactly what he was about, and they supported him, because they don't want these books, this sexually explicit books with children. They don't want that, and so they are there. Trinidad is locked on. Ruth Mahiber Baldio from Trinidad. Welcome. Join me, everybody. Join me to the Marcia Week Show family in welcome the lovely and the powerful. Listen, this lawyer, did she know anything or not? She not easy. She look about the talawa, as they would say. This is attorney Davida, the girl name for David. Don't get it twisted. Davida, Davida Maynard Holligan, and she is one powerful woman. She represented this bill in Parliament, in the Parliament of Barbados, and she spoke. I tell you, I mean, this woman is gifted, and you know, Davida, I'm so proud of what you're doing, and I so support you 100%. Welcome to the Marcia Week Show.
Hello, good night, good night, good night. Thank you, woman of God, and good night to the Marcia Reed Show and the loyal opposition. Good night to the Barbadians in here, the Jamaicans in here, the Trinidadians, wherever you are. Thank you for standing with us. Thank you, thank you. I'm happy tonight to be with you again and to speak on the child protection bill. I look forward to giving you a presentation, which I've put some work into to help give more information and enlightenment than I even gave last time, because our eyes have been opened even more as to how widely this bill can affect our society. It's not just mummies and daddies. This is affecting everybody. And so we are here to talk about it tonight.
Yes, yes, so very, very true. And we're going to go right into it. Listen, folks, I told him my other book, I wrote out my other book. I wrote out a whole book on here, Attorney Holligan, Maynard Holligan, and I have a small one here, and I'm going to be taking notes. And I say take notes. I know people want to hear about that treaty, and we're going to talk about that a bit tonight, and we're going to talk about it a lot on Friday, because we have those Jamaican lawyers who are going to come on, and they're going to educate us, guys, on Friday about that. But for right now, we're going to jump right in. Go right ahead, Maynard Holligan. Go right ahead.
Okay. Now, how do I
You need to get to the next slide. Okay, so we're moving to the next slide. Yes.
Let's move to the next slide. Great. So, under the Child Protection Bill, they have some words that carry an enormous amount of weight, such as abuse. They have the word danger and harm. Oh, thank you for making it bigger. Danger and harm. And these words appear in section 2 of the bill. The word danger is defined as physical, sexual, verbal, or emotional harm. I find that definition to be wholly inadequate. There are 7 different types of abuse. During this presentation, I am going to specifically speak to about 3: emotional abuse, financial abuse, physical abuse. Let's make it 4: verbal abuse. So let's go to the next slide. Okay. Yes, thank you so much. So emotional abuse is defined under the Act as meaning, yes, please go back up. Any act by a perpetrator which causes psychological pain or injury to a child, or is likely to cause significant, go back up, please. Thank you.
So we want the slide to be moved forward, so we can read what's at the end of it, right? Okay.
Or we could just keep it in its original size so that I'll be able to read it normally.
Right. Okay. So we can do that. Yeah.
Great. So let's go back over that. We are still in section 2 of the bill. Emotional abuse means any act, ladies and gentlemen, any act by a person, which they call the perpetrator, which causes psychological pain or injury to a child, or is likely to cause significant harm to the welfare or development of the child, and includes harassment, the use of threatening words or behavior. Now, I know on first glance, hearing that, that sounds perfectly lovely and wonderful. How can we find fault in something like that? Hey, good night, Mr. or Miss Batson. Good night, Batson.
That's
Grand night.
Lumumba Batson.
Oh, wonderful. Good
Yeah.
night. So, what I want to draw your attention to is the fact, one, firstly, that in this definition, it includes any act.
Mm-hmm.
And that means how small, how big, if it medium sized, it does not give a measure. And I'm going to go on a little bit. An act that causes psychological pain. What does that really mean? Now that's a real a guess, really. But what I can say is that when we disagree as individuals on a topic, we go through a moment of turmoil or frustration, that can be considered psychological pain. Now I don't know how we all think about this, but in life, when you have the duty of parent or guardian of a child, and you are actually trying to rear that child well, you will, from time to time, come have instances where you and the child are at different ends in terms of opinions, and the child may be frustrated with you. The child may, and it may be an extended period of time as you are trying to discipline, as you are trying to ensure that the child grows in the way that he or she should grow. And it may be an extended period where there is some turmoil, there's some frustration, there's disagreement, there's the butting of heads. This can be considered psychological pain. Who determines the psychological pain? Excellent question, loyal daughter. Now, based on this bill, the psychological pain is going to be determined by the director or by the court, because these definitions come up for question when the director of the Child Protection Authority or the court are given some sort of notice that something is wrong with the child, whether it's an adequate and an accurate report or not. The point is, someone has told them, or they've come to believe that something is going on with the child that makes the child in need of care and attention. Basically, they have to get involved in our personal lives. So the question is, does something like disagreement with my child really warrant a child protection authority getting involved in my personal life? Does something such as you standing your ground and exercising control over your child, which they may consider psychological pain, which they may consider, as we see the definition, to be significant harm, does this truly amount to a sufficient basis for the court to be getting involved and saying that you are causing emotional abuse? What I'm saying is that this definition is far too wide. It's far too wide. And we're going to get to some examples where we can explore how these definitions have been used in real life with real people. I remember, good night, Mr. Franklin. How are you doing?
Oh, good night. I well, I just got in. I had a case that went till maybe 5 o'clock.
Oh,
So
well,
I
it's
just
good to
got
see you.
home. So I rushed in. So
Good
it's
to
good to
see
see
you.
you too. Hi, Marcia.
Yes, great to see you, Mr. Franklin. And as we are going along, you can feel free to stop the attorney and ask her any questions and to
Yeah, okay.
challenge her as
Good
well.
night.
Okay. All right. Great to see you.
Yes. And actually, since Mr. Franklin is here, when I saw him, I remembered the first time I did this presentation, he brought up an instance of sending his grandson to the barber. And his grandson did not want to go to the barber. So if this bill becomes legislation, those of us who experience, the objection of our children may have to walk on eggshells. Our rights as parents and guardians to control and discipline our children is going to be under scrutiny.
But Miss, you know what,
Yes,
Davida, someone might say, but isn't this good because we have a lot of abuse? There are parents who abuse their children in the society, whether it is Barbados, Trinidad,
yes.
wherever. And those of you who are listening from other countries, we're discussing the proposed child protection bill in Barbados. So why are we? Isn't this a good bill? Because they're talking about emotional abuse, psychological pain, and so on. What is so bad about that?
What's bad is when we take something that is supposed to be used for good purposes and we misuse it to criminalize good mothers and good fathers. The problem is not that we cannot catch the persons who are actually abusing their children. We want to catch the persons who are actually abusing their children. The problem is that there is not sufficient careful care in the way that the definition is scoped or framed to ensure that then it is not extended to criminalize good mothers and good fathers. And I use that word criminalize intentionally because the result of being found to be in breach of this kind of clause, to be guilty of having done some act that they find to be emotional abuse based on section 61 of the bill can lead to 10 years imprisonment.
Wow.
You are going to be branded a child abuser. And if you were somehow to escape uh, the imprisonment, there's the possibility of being fined up to $100,000. And to me, worst of all, is that you very much could be one of those unfortunate parents who has their child ripped away from them.
Mm.
And when you are a parent who love your children, you love your child, to have that child ripped away from you for you doing what you believe is in that child's very best interest. You're doing everything you can to make sure you bring up that child to the best man or the best woman he or she can be. That can be very painful because you love your child. So let's move on. I just want to go through a few more definitions and then we're going to get to how these types of bills, because this bill there are bills like this that have been rolled out in places like Canada. There are bills like this in the US and in the UK and Europe. The kinds of definitions and the phrases and the width of the definitions, these things are already in existence in Canada and the UK and the US. And so I'm not quite certain that this bill is a homegrown bill. I believe that it borrows heavily from legislation already crafted elsewhere. So let's continue. Okay, so can we go to the next page, please? We go to financial abuse. Now, I've heard a Queen's Counsel say, I did not believe it to be so, but she said, I believe it is, let me not call the name, forget the wrong name, but the Queen's Counsel addressing Parliament said that she believes 45% of the men that go before the law courts will be guilty of financial abuse. And when I say men, I mean fathers involved in family law maintenance cases would be
But somebody
guilty.
might say, isn't that good? Because a lot of fathers aren't taking care of their children.
That that may be true, but do we want to criminalize them? Is that going to help? Is this the answer? Do we want to send all of them over to Dodd's prison? Is this the way in which we cure the error and the issue? What I would prefer to do is find a way to have the money directly pulled from their accounts and different things like that. There are other ways that we can well, not in every circumstance, but in some circumstances, there are other ways in which we can deal with fathers who are not willing or too easily willing, yes, to be financial providers for their children. I do not know that we want to criminalize all the fathers or majority of the fathers in Barbados. I don't think we want to criminalize our men in this way. I don't know that this is the answer. That we have to find a solution. That is true. But that we want to brand them child abusers on the basis of financial abuse, I am not certain that that is the answer. Yes, Mr. Franklin.
You see, we borrow legislation and do not understand where we're going. We have a system in Barbados that works. If you are a father that is working, the magistrate can, and a lot of cases have,
yes,
sent a garnishment order to the employer. I know of one man when the garnishment order went to his workplace, the people said, we got people like that working here, and deferred it. You know, because,
oh no.
You know, he was an HR person too. You know,
okay.
He was on contract, and the people said, no, we don't want somebody like that working. And mind you, it was unfair dismissal, but
yeah,
you know, but there is a system. It works.
Yes.
If you have means, if you have let's suppose you have a contract with the government. The magistrate can say, look, then the government paying for the contract. Government, you pay so much money to this mother. It works. So why do we want to fix something that isn't broken? What is broken is the situation where you have to get mothers to go and line up. That they had proposed a lot of fixes for that. I don't know what was the outcome, but that was embarrassing to say the least. Where you have to go in the courtyard and stand a bit and let people see you down there to get money. Those things like that need fixing. Not the fact that the magistrate already has the power to take the money from you, from your account, from wherever you got it. And then, of course, if the magistrate determines that you have the means to pay and do not pay, that is contempt of court.
Exactly.
And they can lock you up.
Exactly.
So what is the problem? What is now I know legislation tries to fix a problem. What is the problem that this is fixing?
What I would tell you is that I am a little concerned by this part of it. Financial abuse means the exercise of control by what they call the perpetrator, which could be the parent, over a child's access to financial resources. And let's say coercion. Now, an ordinary parent, and I am not talking necessarily about any father before the court of law or anything, but an ordinary parent does at times have to coerce their children. And I do not, I am saying, especially when you have older teenagers and so forth, you perhaps coerce is a word that may offend some, but some parents use money to get the children to do some chores around the house. They would give them a little stipend here. I don't know how you all define coercion, but that is sometimes the tool used to help them to control the child and train the child to do different types of tasks around the house. So I am a little concerned as to how something like that may be taken. This is why one of the things I have noticed in this bill is that it seems to try to deprive parents of control. Parents by law are given care and control of their children, and the care is you nourishing that child, financial provision, and so forth. The control means that you get to make certain decisions. It goes beyond. You get to say no, you cannot do X, you cannot do Y. And it's not because you are, bossing the child, but it's because you're trying to lead the child along the right path. And so, for instance, joining certain types of associations or bodies, you will say, no, don't join that. That's not the kind of environment I want you in, or the kind of company that I would like you to keep. For whatever reason, you would, different things like that. So I am concerned that in this bill, there is really the effort to take away parental rights by limiting parental control.
I see. There is a question here from First Wave in Trinidad, and the question is, what criteria determines the best interest of a child under Section 3.2?
Okay, well, I can see that I'm taking very long. It's already 5:30. Let's go to the next slide.
You need to be back here on Friday. I can see this.
Yeah, this bill, as I tell persons, is 72 pages long.
Yes.
And when I try to go through it, anyway, I try to go through it. It takes time, but I'm going to try to get to there is the answer to this question is in here, but I just want to kind of seal off these abuses first before I move on. So can we go to the next slide, please? And then I'm actually not going to deal with all different types of abuses. The point is that these definitions for things that are very wrong are too wide. So let's continue. I want to apply it to people. The next slide, please. Physical abuse. Take note, any act which causes any type of pain is considered physical abuse. That means if you pinch your child, if you pull the mirror, any act, verbal abuse, shouting, any shouting, anyhow, to move forward. Yes, please. I can't hear you, Mr. Franklin.
Now, I understand any act, but what is the omission that will cause pain? You don't take him to the doctor?
I don't know. One of the things that the act does is it says basically if you would allow the child to, the bill, if you are not the one who is actually doing it, but you are someone allowing it to be done, then you are also a perpetrator. So that is the only way I can try to rationalize it. But honestly, for physical abuse, it requires contact. So it's difficult to understand the omission. So again, that is just me trying to rationalize it, to try to reason and say, perhaps this is what they are, the evil they are trying to address.
But that is the problem. You got to know what it is.
Yeah, the definition must be clear.
Must be certain.
You are absolutely on point. Next slide, please. Thank you. I'm trying to get to the first slide.
Yes, and our time is slipping away.
I know.
But this is something we're going to talk. So you know what, Mr. Franklin, we probably, as often as she can come, and to just have her go through it. What do you think, Mr. Franklin?
Yes, I agree, because this is too important to for people not to know what we are getting or what they are putting us into.
Okay.
I think we need the widest possible exposure for this bill.
Okay.
Because I've been through it, and I say they will take away my children 100 times. Yeah. Because I shout. I used to shout, and I used to refuse to give let them go to parties or if I think you misbehave. I said, well, sorry, I ain't gonna beat you, but you see that party you're going to, you're not going anymore. That would be
on point. Listen,
that's psychological pain.
My mom would take away my allowance if I was bad. So you get your allowance, and if you are not doing it, what you're supposed to do, no allowance for you on this occasion. That may be considered financial abuse.
Look at what somebody's saying here from Canada. Tony Paris in Canada says there's a law in Canada where if you don't agree with your child's gender choice, that child can be taken from you.
Right. So I think what I'll do, I will stick to the abuses and not try to cover the entire bill. It seems an impossibility. And I will try to answer best interest of the child.
Right. We have 7 minutes, and then 7 minutes, and then we will schedule you, and you become a regular.
Yes. Okay. All right. So let's go to Pastor Bernard Randall, which is the first picture, so that I can show y'all just how widely this bill can impact our society. Can we go to the next? I think it's a few slides down.
A picture. So that's
Yes.
a picture.
Yes.
Okay.
So the question is, are you a danger to children? So this is a school chaplain. It's a private school. He is the pastor there. And he preached based on the Bible that you do not have, and I remember he was very conservative. He said, you may not agree with LGBTQ agenda or doctrine, because the Bible says, you know, you're made male and female. So he really tried to coach it. But at the heart of it, this is a man understanding the society he's in, but trying his best to say, this is the word of God. This is what we believe here, because he's at a Christian school. He was fired. He was held to be a danger to children. You know, initially when we look at this bill, we think it is just affecting parents. Yeah. And we question whether the government is also being held responsible. This bill affects everybody. Everybody. He was held to have emotionally abused those children by way of speaking the truths as he knows it, based on the Bible. It was considered psychological harm and abuse. Next slide, please, because I know we got 7 minutes. Next slide, please. Look, right there in the paper, it was big. You are a danger to children. Church of England school chaplain who said pupils could disagree with woke dogma. And he was fired. I know it's before the law courts. Next slide, please. This little girl, her name is Casey. She looks like any other little Black Barbadian young lady you would find. Beautiful little girl. She was removed from her parents' care. Why? Because she did not want to participate in a Pride Day organized by the school. And what did that lead to? It led to what we would call under the bill the Child Protection Authority coming in and investigating her home life, investigating her parents. It led to them questioning the way that her parents were, the way that she was being trained. I don't necessarily know if it was religious. They could have been atheists, simply that they did not agree necessarily with LGBTQ. They could have been Muslim. The point is, they didn't agree with LGBTQ. They trained their daughter in the way that she should go. That's their daughter. You pass on as inheritance to your children your views on life. It's one of the most precious things to you, how you view the world and your religious beliefs or your theology of life. That's one of the most precious things we pass on in terms of legacy. And what happened? They removed the child from the parents' care. And they told those parents that they were child abusers. They branded them. They criminalized those parents. Do I have any time left?
Okay, 2 minutes. You're all in. I see Mr. Arthur. Mr. Arthur SCHAPER is on. He's from California, and I know he's listening in on this. And it'd be great just before his session just to hear his thoughts on it. But Arthur, Mr. Franklin, Mr. Franklin is a very, very serious man. He's a field director for mass resistance in California, and they have branches in Canada and different places. And we're going to hear more about what he does. But Arthur, you're listening to this. What's going through your mind? Does it sound familiar to anything in the U.S.?
It's all too familiar, sadly. Thank you again, Marcia, for having me on the program today. It is time to sound the alarm as loudly as one can about the systemic abuse that governments want to perpetrate against parents who want to protect their children from LGBT perversion. This abuse of parental authority and the desire to groom, indoctrinate, and abuse children to accept LGBT perversion as normative is happening all over the world. We have assisted parents in Canada, for example. We had one father who went to jail because his daughter was being transitioned at the local public school without his knowledge or permission. When he opposed it, courts ruled in favor of the daughter under the guardianship of other lawyers under the guardianship of the ex-wife, that she would continue to be transitioned to become a male. And when the father spoke out against this abuse, he was put in prison. He was jailed for more than 60 days just for telling the truth about the systemic abuse that had been perpetrated against his daughter. Yeah. In the state of Indiana, parents lost custody of there was one parent who lost the custody, I believe it was the father of his child, because the child wanted to pretend to be the opposite sex. There is the notorious case of Jeff Younger and his son James Younger, and this is in the state of Texas. Texas presumably is supposed to be a conservative state, and yet the judicial system and the legislatures are cowardly or complicit in this whole LGBT madness. And so the ex-wife took Jeff Younger's son James to California, where I live, where laws have recently been enacted which allow parents to do whatever they want to the child, to push them into all kinds of sexual mutilation. And in this state, you can lose custody of your children if you refuse to enable or accept their confused, destructive, false identity, pretending to be the opposite sex. So this is all too familiar.
Wow.
We need to sound the alarm across the globe, and certainly in the nation of Barbados. And I'm glad to be here to help speak out against this agenda in full.
Wow. Listening to that, attorney, and hearing he has had, real life experiences. He's had some clients that he has to deal with, and what's going through your mind? I know we're closing up this section, but I would love if you can hang around a little bit just to hear more of what he's saying. But what are your thoughts, attorney?
I want to say thank you, Arthur, for the work that you're doing. I want to say a huge thank you. I know that it's sacrificial. I know that persons will pull you down, but you are standing on the right ground. And I am really grateful for you being here tonight and letting our audience here in the region know that we are not blowing any smoke screens, and this is not fictitious. This is real. This is earth and house, home shattering realities. Yeah, and we must stand against this here. We must push back, and we must unite all over the globe, those of us who stand against this, and push this back. So thank you.
Yes, well, thank you so much, Mrs. Maynard Holligan, for being here. I know you have a very important thing to do tomorrow, and so I know you'll be listening in the green room. And for sure, once your schedule is clear, we would love to have you back on Friday. There's so many questions in the comment section, which I will try to send to you, tomorrow, and you can probably look at them and see how we can answer some of these questions. Okay. So, but thank you so much for coming, for being here with us tonight.
Right.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Well, Mr. Franklin, we have a gentleman here with us, when I read of his bio online, and recognize that he's part of that group that sometimes you're watching stuff on YouTube and you will see people go into a school board meeting and they disrupt the meeting, or begin to, to speak out about different things, parents, and, with this whole gender issue all over the US in California. He's part of some of those activities, or the libraries where they go and they find all these books at the libraries, or they decide that they're going to disrupt a story time of drag queens reading stories to children. And so Mr. Arthur SCHAPER is part of Mass Resistance, and he's going to
Yes.
tell us a bit about that tonight. Again, official welcome. Welcome to Barbados, even though you're not here physically. But can you tell us a little bit about Mass Resistance and the work that you do in the US and internationally?
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me on your program this evening. Mass Resistance, we announce to the world that we are the international pro-family group that makes the difference. Many pro-family, many conservative organizations, they settle for protests or for doing podcasts only and not engaging and training the citizenry for real hardcore activism. What is needed now more than ever in this culture war is a full force commitment to fight against every aspect of this destructive LGBT agenda. And something else that distinguishes us from other pro-family organizations is that we speak plainly and clearly about the noxious effects and the destructive consequences of homosexuality and transgenderism. There's a growing problem, even among conservatives, even among some Christian organizations or other religious organizations trying to push back on this LGBT madness. They don't want to speak the truth about homosexuality and transgenderism. But we have recognized, Mass Resistance has recognized, that if you want to win this fight, you have to stand for truth. And you have to be committed to telling the truth, no matter how poorly it is received or how vicious or outraged people are in their reactions. This is an essential aspect of winning this culture war. You can't say that it's wrong to teach homosexuality to children if you think that it's okay for two men to be married. You can't assert to children that it's wrong for a boy to put on a dress or to pretend to be a girl and force everyone else to buy into this lie if you think it's okay for adults to do the same. Now, this is a broad and a very strong argument, but the truth is always a winning argument. And that's where Mass Resistance is fundamentally different from many other conservative organizations. And you also mentioned we've had considerable successes in fighting against this agenda. We have shut down drag queen story hour programs. It is unthinkable that we're in a time where confused men dress up as garish parodies of women and insist on reading to children. They want to be so close to the children. It's disgusting. It's grooming. It's child abuse. And we have shut down those events throughout the United States. We've also been involved.
We want to ask a question. I see Mr. Franklin there. I believe you have a comment about that, Mr. Franklin. I see.
I was agreeing with them, but I was just laughing because I've seen some of them, and when they describe these weirdos, I prefer to call them weirdos.
Yes, they are.
In front of little children, and they're sitting over their legs open, and the children can watch underneath them. You know that they're men, and they're, it's disgusting.
Yes.
And for some person in any government, local, state, federal, or anybody who can support that type of behavior, that person needs to be out of public office.
Yes.
And I'm saying the same thing here in Barbados. People who want to support that type of behavior have no right in public office, where Barbados in particular has a Christian upbringing. And they're deviating because they have some international nonsense that they want to go about. It is cruel. And I always tell people that I will support that type of behavior when two rams get a lamb.
When two rams get a lamb, then you will support that kind of behavior.
I'm going to remember that phrase.
Mr. SCHAPER, can you tell us, you talk about closing down you know, these kind of story, or how do you, I mean, even get the courage to do that, to walk us through that? Because for us, we only watch that on a video and wondering, oh my goodness, those people are brave to talk to us. How is that done?
Well, for example, we had a group in New Hampshire, which is in the northeastern section of the United States. They made repeated protests to the local library saying that if you're going to allow a drag queen to be around children, you cannot close the event off from the public because it's a public library paid with taxpayer dollars. So our activists in New Hampshire made it very clear that they were going to show up in large numbers to protest in the library. That alone was enough to scare off the drag queens so that they shut down their program. In Georgia, in Atlanta, Georgia, we had activists a few years ago. They went throughout the Atlanta community, throughout the Ponce de Leon suburb of Atlanta, Georgia, alerting the general public, speaking to the local businesses, and they made enough of an uproar about it that they were able to get the program shut down. The people at the library didn't want to deal with the outrage and the shame that they would endure from the public. In Texas, our Texas director, Tracy Shannon, she organized protests outside of one of the local libraries in Houston, Texas. They did this on a repeated basis. Then she finally did her own research and found out that 2 of the drag queens that were reading to the children, they were registered sex offenders. They had abused children in the past, and the library in Houston had not done their required due diligence to do a background check to see if they had any prior convictions. And we have seen this issue with multiple drag queens throughout the country. So we investigate, we expose these perverted people, we sponsor and run a relentless pressure campaign via email, via phone calls, via social media. We raise awareness and outrage about these programs, and we get them shut down. That's what we do. It's important for people to raise their voices and announce the outrage about this perversity, that it should not be allowed around children. And even recently in Pocatello, Idaho, our activists, they just walked into the library during the Drag Queen Story Hour. They took up all the seats. So it was only people who were hostile to the program. So the drag queens were performing for adults and not children. And they got the message and they left the library and never came back. So those are some of the things that we do. And we have this courage because this is an outrage. We refuse to be bullied or kowtowed by this. And we have a good, strong group of people in many places that are as outraged about this as we are. And we instruct them in the ways to confront this issue, how to talk about it, how to change minds on it. And we are successful in shutting these programs down.
Wow.
I see a comment here, if I may. Yeah. Joseph Cadogan asks, that's why we have to get more organization to join forces in Barbados. Well, I'm jumping ahead somewhat, if you don't mind. I've been invited by some of the people in Barbados to help form a mass resistance against all of this perversity on the island. We've had successes in the Cayman Islands. We were helping activists there to stop the same-sex marriage push, and they were ultimately successful there. I believe they have a similar status as a Commonwealth country. I'm not sure if they're recognized as fully independent. That's something I'm still learning to understand regarding the status for Barbados. But one thing is for sure, the mothers and fathers in Barbados need to be and should be the final authority on what happens to their children in their country. And it's time for perverted people like Mia Motley to realize that she doesn't get to decide what mothers and fathers do with their children. They get to make that decision. This is a Can
you say that a little louder? Can you say that a little louder?
Absolutely. Mia, I would like to make
let's read the Prime Minister. So you're giving a message to the Prime Minister, Mia Motley.
Mia Motley, I would say this to her directly if she was sitting in the same room with me. You are a child abuser. You are harming the children and the parents of your country. It is despicable and it is wrong. And you are taking orders from international groups and organizations, and you are undermining the mothers and fathers of your country. You are not brought into the premiership to run your own program and harm children and violate natural law and defy and harm what is good. I have received recent information that voter fraud is a norm in Barbados, which may explain why Mia Mottley, pushing these unpopular policies, is able to have a unanimous government in the parliament. It's disgusting. It's outrageous. And we are going to make every effort to encourage every mother and father to speak out and to defend their children and to speak against you and the evil things that you are doing. That is the full message that I would give to your prime minister. It is so important. We have this problem all over the world that leadership thinks that they don't have to listen to the people who put them in power. And they seem to also forget, as I know that I'm speaking to a Christian country, that all power comes from God. It does not come from one man here or there. And that authority must be respected. And there must be honor given to the one who gives that power. And ultimately, the authority must be restored to the parents. I understand that Barbadians fear losing their jobs, their reputation, and even their freedom. But we know here at Mass Resistance, we have a key figure that we see as a mascot of sorts. It's Samuel Adams. He was one of the first, you could say, community organizers for that helped to form the United States of America. And he made it very clear that it's not about trying to get a bunch of people, but if you have a tireless minority that is keen on inflaming the imaginations of men for freedom, you can change anything. You can make a difference. And that's what Mass Resistance wants to help every Barbadian to do in their country.
You know, wow, this is, listen, the chat is lighting up. Now, you said something, and I'm just wanting to clarify that as the host of the show, you know, so that I'm not sued. So when you said that she is, that you made a claim that she's a child abuser, you're talking about because of the policies that are set up. Is that what
that is correct? When you're pushing,
that's what you're alleging. Yes, go ahead.
When you're pushing the LGBT agenda in full force, when you call yourself pro-LGBT and you say that you want children to be learning about this is child abuse. And you know what? That is not defamatory and it is not libelous. It is abusive to tell a child that he or she can change her sex, like flipping a switch. It is child abuse to induce a child to believe that it's okay to have sex with whomever, whenever, whatever. The very thought of an adult, a stranger, having these charged sexual conversations with children is abominable. It is unconscionable. And this is something that any government, any elected official who sponsors or advocates for it should absolutely be thrown out of office. It is child abuse. Every person who does this is absolutely a child abuser. No teacher, no elected official, no authority figure of any kind should be pushing LGBT anything. And we need to be very serious about this matter. Homosexuality, transgenderism, these are harmful behaviors. These are lies that cut the lifespan short of an individual. And we have this pervasive dishonesty from major corporations, from governments, from the media, from academia that insist on jamming the minds and eyes and ears of every person to believe that love is love and that there's nothing wrong with two men marrying when they hurt each other. They hurt the community, they hurt the public health, and they deprive children of a mother and a father. That is evil, that is wrong, that is child abuse. And we must stand firm and speak the truth on the matter and not hold back.
Yeah. Wow. Mr. Franklin, what are your thoughts about what this gentleman is saying to us? Because I had planned to ask you. He had sent me the questions, and I said I would ask you on the, because he asked me if there was voter fraud. I have the questions here, actually. I think did I send them to you, Mr. Franklin?
I didn't get a chance because I was in a meeting from 1 until after 5, so I didn't check my mail.
But what are your thoughts about what he's saying on why he believes this prime minister should should leave office?
Before I say anything, I want to say I love this man.
Caswell, why you love the man, Caswell? Why do you?
I must say this is a welcome reception which we don't get as often in the West. Oh, I mean the Caribbean countries are the West as well, so let me rephrase. But in the Western world where I live here in the United States or in the United Kingdom or Canada, this kind of reception sadly is not well received. It's unfortunate. We speak the truth and we are persecuted for it, but it is good to know that there are good, decent, common sense people like in Barbados who know that it's not two men, it's not Adam and Steve, it's Adam and Eve. And Adam cannot become Eve. And Adam and Eve can have children, and those children should not be confused. And no authority should be pushing confusion or perversion on anyone.
Wow.
Oh my,
Mazia,
Mr. Franklin, yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm looking at Mr. Sean Cool's comment here. The Barbados government doesn't even want a sex offender registry. I must say that this LGBT agenda, it's not just about adults. As we know, they're targeting the children, and they want to normalize pedophilia. They want to normalize sexual relations between adults and children. And this is one part of that evil agenda. So I thank Mr. Cool for bringing this up. Thank you for allowing me.
The Attorney General, Mr. Franklin, the Attorney General
said...
the
Attorney General is the person who claimed that we is too small. We don't need a sexual offense. There's registered, you know.
They said we don't need it.
He don't need it. And that is the problem. We don't need him, but he's there too. You know, let me just go on to tell you some of the reasons why I love this man. He is speaking exactly the truth. Nothing more, nothing less. When he talks about voter fraud, on more than one occasion on this show, I have said to the people that in my lifetime, and I've seen many elections, I do not know of one that was free and fair. There's voter fraud, wide open. Everybody knows it, and nobody controls it. And the reason why it is so is because the Prime Minister is the person who appoints the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. That is the commission that decides that regulates elections in Barbados. And the Prime Minister picks 3, and the opposition picks 2. That means the government will always win whatever there's a dispute at the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. All right? It should be an independent commission selected by the president, and in our case, sir, the president is non-partisan. It isn't supposed to be involved in any political thing, unlike the United States where the president is political. So, but I say that it should be a person, and not by a politician, who is then regulated by the same people that they select. You can't get it worse than that. We have laws against treating here for elections, and you cannot have big fets and jump ups and stuff during the election campaign, and they have them right on their stages, and nobody does anything about it. So you are correct. You are absolutely correct. And just Barbadians don't want to acknowledge it because it makes us look bad, you know, because we tell the world that we have free and fair elections. I have been involved in elections for the better part of my adult life. Better part of my life, period. And I can assure you that the practices that happen in Barbados are not free and fair. Yeah, we get elections, and both political parties know it. But they don't even, you remember in one election, but you might not remember, but in one election, Anthony Wood was winning, and then they couldn't find a box. That's almost impossible. That is if you follow the rules, because you are supposed to have eye contact with that box at all times. So how can you lose it? You have to lose the people as well. But then it come back, and then the other candidate, like he had all the votes in that one box. It is a sham, but it produced a result, and the people buy into it. I do not believe for 1 minute that those 2 elections where the Prime Minister got all 30 seats in the House.
Wow.
That was a free and fair election. I saw one of her supporters out there with money handing out on election day.
Oh,
it was
wow.
photographed and shown on WhatsApp. Some person sent the pictures to me on WhatsApp. That is illegal. You know? And then these people go into the house and they refer to each other as the honorable this and the honorable that, and they laugh all the time because I know their prayers, I know how they behave. And then when you get them coming in and want to change our way of life, why are these people in office? Why do they want to be in office so badly? Because they have an agenda or somebody is talking an agenda. But I can tell you something. So I remember reading earlier this year about a guy called Graham. But he changed his name to the Bryson, and he was convicted for rape in Scotland. And then after committing his rape, eventually decided that he's now a woman. And they put him in a female prison. You know what can happen when a man in prison with a lot of women. Now in England, now you have they don't make a ruling that says that if you're a trans woman with male genitalia, I don't know how you can be a woman with male genitalia, but that is what the ruling says, that it bans trans women with male genitalia from women's prisons, because they were going in there and getting the women, the women were going in there and getting the other women pregnant.
Wow. that is crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah.
You know, Mr. Shopper, you sent me 3 questions, and I said to myself when I was preparing this evening, I said it's best for me to let Mr. Franklin answer the questions to you for you on the program, and I believe you got all the answers. What are you've heard now about the voter fraud?
Wow.
And I think you said somebody else shared that with you. What's going on in your mind at this time, knowing that we have 0 opposition in Barbados, no opposition. There's none, like nobody is in
Yes.
all the seats, the entire Senate, the entire Parliament, okay? And the media, a lot of people in the media, they're also, intimidated. A show like this, we use this to speak to the people, but what are what's going on in your mind and thinking of what just happened with the Samoa agreement, with all of these, it's a trade agreement, but then they have all of the gender stuff attached to this agreement. And Barbados is one of the few Caribbean islands that have signed it. That combination, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking it's time for the people to rise up and speak out. Absolutely. And I was reading one of the comments below, and they said that I was speaking what many people feel, but they are afraid to say. And what I know is I'm thinking about what happened when the Iron Curtain fell at the fall of the Soviet Union. Thinking there was a country, Romania, and there was one pastor who was speaking out boldly against the communist regime and against the evil dictator Ceausescu. And what happened is that this one pastor would always speak out, and the people loved him for that. And so then one day, the secret police in Romania, they came to the church to arrest the pastor. And what happened was that the people said, we've had enough. And so that they gathered and they stood outside of the church and they said, you're not coming in here. And then it went from 1 person to 5 to 50 to 100. And pretty soon there were popular revolts all over the country. And within weeks, the dictator Ceausescu, he was removed from power. He was tried, convicted, and executed for his multiple crimes against the people. What my point is that when you have a small group of people that stands up, and then more see, I'm not alone. They have stood up, and they're not alone in doing it, then I am going to join them as well. And that's what we need to do. That's part of what mass resistance means, that people have to start speaking up in their schools, in their local boards, and saying, you're not going to push this perversion on our children. They need to start standing up to their lawmakers and say, I don't care what letter is after your name, you are not going to vote for this perversion. You work for us, not for Mia Motley, not for the Labour Party, not for any international interest. You must do what is right for the people of Barbados Barbados and for the children. And I know that there are pastors there who have courage. There are pastors who did not shut their churches down. And there are pastors who did not impose masks on people during the COVID outbreak. And I can tell you that here in the United States, we had similar flirtations with similar tyranny. And when I walked into a grocery store one day and said, I'm not going to wear a mask, and I had 2 other people with me, and even when the food clerks, they say to me, you've got to wear a mask. And I said, no, I don't. And so there was me and the other 2. And we went around the store, we got our goods, and we left without any trouble. And it's that kind of a momentum that we need to encourage in people. And I think it starts with the pastors. It may start with having mothers and fathers en masse keeping their kids out of the schools. I think about what the protesters did during Pinochet's regime in Chile, where they would deliberately not go to school or go to work. They would slow things down. People would start going in the streets and they would start banging pots and pans to make general disturbances that were peaceful, did not harm the natural rights of others. This is the kind of momentum that we need to be thinking about. This is the kind of attitude and the kind of activism that residents in Barbados need to take on. It's your island. It's your country. It doesn't belong to Mia Mottley. It doesn't belong to the World Economic Forum. It doesn't belong to the United Nations. And I don't think I'm sharing something that's a secret, but my understanding is that Mia Mottley is being groomed to be the next Governor General or Secretary General for the United Nations. Well, perhaps one of the things we should start doing is making sure that things are just a little too troublesome in her country so she doesn't get the promotion. That may be one thing that we start thinking about. These are the things we need to be thinking about. It's just a mindset. It's just a mindset that has to change. That no, you don't have to accept what's happening. And you may be afraid, but when one person, then 5, then 10, Marcia and Mr. Franklin, you're speaking the truth. You're not alone. And we can find others who are in the same place. And then if you have a group of people at a workplace who speak up, what are they going to do? They can't fire all of you. In this country, in the United States, they wanted to impose vaccine mandates on different businesses and different firms. And what happened was there were groups of workers. They all stood up and they said, if you impose a vaccine mandate, we leave. And they all were ready to go. They sent the message loud and clear. And the businesses said, okay, never mind, we won't do it. And that has to be the same attitude when it comes to fighting this LGBT madness. You're not forcing this on me. We will not put our kids through this nonsense. We will not tolerate you stealing our elections and stealing our children and stealing our future.
But I'm listening to you, and you're a Christian, and you're saying you went into the store and you were told to wear the mask, and you decided that you were not going to wear the mask. There are some people who believe because you're a Christian that you need to follow the law. The moment you stop following what the laws are saying of the land, that you're not a Christian. Because Barbados is very Christian minded, and a lot of churches, pastors are listening and say, no, we have to obey the law. What do you say about that?
They are misunderstanding the scripture, or they haven't read enough of it. There are so many passages in the Old Testament. You had the Pharaoh who told the Hebrew midwives to kill all the young baby boys, and they refused to do so. And God blessed them with houses, not just homes, not just buildings, but with legacies. That's what the Hebrew communicates there. You have King Saul who said to his army, not one of you will eat a drop, not eat any morsel of food until we defeat the enemy. But his son Jonathan had some honey and was able to achieve a rout against the Philistines. And when the king said that he had to die, the soldiers stood up and said, no, you will not. It's always God's word and God's will and God's way, which is number one. And last of all, it's a misunderstanding of Romans 13. Indeed, power comes from God and we are to submit, but we are to submit to the degree that it doesn't undermine our principles and our adherence to God's goodness, to Christ's sacrifice. If we are forced to do something unjust and evil, if the government orders us to do something unjust or evil, we must resist. We must say no. We must not comply. This is essential. Acts chapter 5, when the men were beaten for preaching in the name of Jesus, the men said, we cannot help but do so. And we won't stop. And we have to do what is right for our children. Even if the government says you have to do X, we must do what is right. We must do Y. And that's it. Deborah Myers makes a great point. Christians don't have to be stupid. I think in too many cases, I think that people use that as an excuse not to take a stand. It's not that they're stupid. It's that they're afraid or they don't want the discomfort. That's what the real issue is.
Yeah.
You remember there was a passage, I don't remember exactly what it is, but I remember seeing it where the master asked if you're, the Jews don't do anything on Saturday, and the master asked, suppose your ass fell in the well on the Sabbath. Remember? So if the ass falls in the well on Saturday, what would you do? The law says that you're not supposed to work on the Saturday. So, as he correctly said, they're missing the point.
I'm thinking of something else. Speaking of the Sabbath, Jesus and his disciples were walking in a field and they were breaking grain to eat. Mm-hmm. And the Pharisees reproached him and said, "Why do you teach your disciples to do what is not lawful?" And he even quoted from the Old Testament. David not only ate on the Sabbath, but he ate the showbread. He ate the holy bread, which was not fit for the common man to eat. So God cares about man, and he cares about his goodness over man's rules and regulations. And most importantly, we're talking about a wicked government that is pushing systemic child abuse. We must not comply with this. It is essential for Barbadians to say, no, we will be a mass resistance against this perversion, against this corruption, against this manifest evil.
Yeah, the name of your organization is Mass Resistance, and it's the people resisting, and especially in a country like Barbados, where there is no opposition in government, and where we have no opposition senators, and where the media, for a large part, is also bought out. It is the people, don't you think, Ala, Mr. SCHAPER? It's the people that will need to rise up. I mean, we're seeing that this bill. I'm just looking for it just to read something from it. Article 48 of the ACP-EU agreement says that the petition shall commit to the full and effective implementation of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action and the Program of Action of the International Conference on Population and Development and the outcomes of their review conferences. They shall further stress the need for universal access to quality and affordable, comprehensive sexual and reproductive health information and education. Now, this Mr. Franklin, is what it is being alleged that the government signed on to yesterday or early this morning in Samoa. As it relates to Barbados, and Jamaica has refused to sign on. We're hearing Guyana didn't sign, Trinidad didn't sign, Bahamas didn't sign. Actually, this is it here on the screen. It's Article 48 here on the screen. That is there. Let me get that banner removed so that we can actually see it. Article 48, that says that the parties shall commit to the full and effective implementation of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action and the Program of Action of the International Conference on Population and Development and the outcomes of their review conferences. They shall further stress the need for universal access to quality and affordable comprehensive sexual and reproductive health information and education, taking into consideration the UNESCO, and it goes on and goes on. This is going to be on our website, themarciaweekshow.com. And thank you so much for the, Dave, thank you. Let's see, Mr. SCHAPER again. Thank you very much. Am I the one to remove it? Yes, thank you so much. When we see this kind of thing that has happened, we've had no consultation with the people. We didn't even know about this agreement until Jamaica started to speak about it. Then we realized, and actually that document came from Jamaica. but they're signing our lives away, giving us selling our children basically. What are your thoughts about that, Mr. Shopper?
I think that it should be recognized as null and void because the government deliberately hid this, did not want to talk about it, didn't want the people of Barbados to know about it. I think it's essential to appeal to the support of your sister countries there in the Caribbean who have rejected this terrible proposal. I looked at some of the language. They wanted to implement the so-called UN Charter of Rights for the Child, when really the charter would open up children to all types of exploitation. When they talk about sexual rights or reproductive freedoms, they are pushing into that perverse and terrible arena of children being exploited for sexual ends. The notion that children should be able to, that they are sexual at birth and that they should be exploited or be able to experience sexual contact as children. This is the final agenda with so many of these corrupt and aggressive global compacts. And that is a big problem with this Samoa agreement.
Yeah. I'm listening to Mr. Franklin, and he's talking about the various ways of resisting and of having mass resistance. And I think of Martin Luther King. I was saying that to somebody today. And Martin Luther King was a preacher, Mr. Franklin. He was a preacher. And in order for us, for them to see all those laws removed where Black people in the U.S. could have the same rights as everybody else, they had to have mass resistance and they had to disobey the law. Mr. Franklin, because I know people are listening and their minds are already going, how can we actually make this happen? And I want to ask you that question before we go back to Arthur. Arthur is talking about this mass resistance. Do you see it being practical here in Barbados, Mr. Franklin?
I have been praying and hoping for it. As a matter of fact, if you look, you will see that I had some success at resistance this week when I asked my workers at the Barbados Revenue Authority to stay home. All right? It had an impact. And people should realize that if that small group, less than 100 people didn't turn up for work, but it had an impact on them because the places were full and the taxpayers couldn't get their business transacted. That is only one. So I'm in favor of it. Trust me. I hope that people can to see that example and realize that it is not some pie in the sky, far-fetched notion that he is speaking about. It is real, but you have to stop allowing the people who abuse you to tell you what is right. Yeah. That is our problem. We have a government who wants to be bullies, and yet so they will tell you, oh, you should be doing this, and tell you what you should do. And that's why they have actually commandeered most of the other unions, because I use commandeer, but take over, whatever you want to use. But they have taken over the unions to the extent that they rendered them useless. They neutered them. Like they want to neuter the society.
Mm-hmm. When you're speaking, thank you, Mr. Franklin. When you're speaking, Arthur, of mass resistance, you are somebody, that's a question I was going to pose to you. You are talking about non-violence. Like you went into the supermarket. So talk about, give us examples that are the possibilities that could happen in Barbados. Non-violent mass resistance, because we need it done in mass.
We need parents to. Parents need to start keeping their kids at home. Parents then can take their children and protest in the public squares against the perversions that they want to push on the children. I don't see, people doing sit-ins perhaps in government buildings would be appropriate. You have the entire Barbadian parliament doesn't feel like they have to listen to the people. This is extremely problematic. I think that when it comes with what we did dealing with the Drag Queen Story Hour programs, as I mentioned before, we had our activists. They walked into, they walked into the meeting rooms ahead of time. They take all the seats away. I think that these kind of sit-ins, these kind of non-compliant measures are needed as much as possible. Whatever daily routines that Barbadians are expected to comply with, they need to say no. We're not going to allow for the basic functions of government and state if the government and the state are not going to listen to the people in the country. These are the efforts that need to be taken, because as you've both shared with me, very painfully shared with me, your vote and the ballot is so corrupted and has been so dishonored that these are the next steps that need to be taken.
Yeah, I'm thinking of this agreement that we are now locked into, Mr. Franklin, for 20 years. If what my understanding is correct, based on my research, it says it's 20 years that we're locked into it. My thing is the only recourse we have is to not comply.
Yes.
There is nothing else that we can do, because this government is in power for the next how many years? Another 3 years, Mr. Franklin?
They started in 2022, so they have 2027.
So really 4 years. Are we going to sit down and take this about 3.5, 4 years? We're going to continue with this. What about the Samoa agreement that they have signed us onto? What are we going to do when they begin to teach that kind of thing in the school? And I think, Mr. Arthur, when a lot of our lawyers were speaking against the child protection bill, etc., I remember, Mr. Franklin, that there was an MP who said, say whatever you have to say, this bill, they said the child protection bill will be signed into law because we are already signed on to lots of international treaties. Do you remember that, Mr. Franklin?
Ed Mahinson, I well remember.
So probably he was talking about the Samoa agreement, or the Samoa Accord that they were already, because they had announced, Barbados was one of the first Caribbean islands from July to declare that we are for this agreement. And they believed that they could go ahead, Mr. Arthur, and say we are for it because they know they don't have any opposition, to oppose them in government.
I have another take on that. He who pays the piper calls the tune. And we are around the world, everywhere. Anybody who has money to lend, you're going to begging them to lend you it. So if these people have conditions, they want you to be LGBT, they want you to sign on these other agreements, you will do it because you want their money. And Barbados government now is like an international prostitute. They do what they do the business for who pays. And we are not paying our bills in Barbados now. In order to pay our bills in Barbados, we are borrowing the foreign exchange. And as a result, the IMF, World Bank, IADB, all those people are saying to us, this is what we want you to do. So they have to do it. That is why they have not come to the public of Barbados and said, this is what we intend to do on your behalf. We find out about these things by the way. We found out about the national insurance changes and the pension changes that the IMF was pushing after they were passed in the lower house, because we have two sets, lower house and upper house. After they were passed in the lower house, we found out about them. Okay, we are finding out every time we look around. There is something that the government is doing that nobody else knew. They don't tell you anything. And I personally have been crying out against this now since 2018. And they know what they're doing, because when they were in opposition, they complained that the last administration did not give them enough time to go over the bills. Now they're giving no one time, not even their own MPs. So we have a situation where the government, the cabinet of Barbados, goes into a situation and without even telling the other members of the party that forms the government, or the other members of the parliament, because you remember when they passed the amendments to the national insurance thing, and it was supposed to go to the Senate the following Wednesday. Then on that Wednesday, after protests from this show, the senators did not go and pass it. They went and had the legislation explained to them. They did not know what they were going to pass. They are given instructions and they do it. And the only body that can give them instructions is Mayor Morley. But she goes begging, so she has to dance to the tune of the piper. The pipers are the people who are giving them the money, who are lending them the money. And that is our biggest problem in Barbados, that the government has been reduced to prostitutes.
Oh my goodness. So you're just to make sure I understand, the government is heavily in debt to other countries. Is that what the situation is?
Countries, international agencies, whatever. So what these countries do, they have conditions for their loans. We don't find out about these conditions. They don't tell us what these conditions are, because we even found out that they were saying, oh, these are the cheapest loans available anywhere in the world. And then quick so the people raise the interest rates maybe by 400%. You know, because they don't tell us anything. They themselves don't even check the documents that they're signing. They just go there and become, but they need the money that badly that they will sell their souls. But you see, the thing is, I don't mind them selling their souls, but they're selling me down the street with them.
Yeah. You know, I see here, I was trying to get it up on the screen, but the people were asking about the Samoa agreement, and we need to register. First of all, they need to tell us if they signed it or not. They said they were going to sign it. We have a document coming out of Jamaica, actually, from the Jamaica newspaper, where our Minister of Foreign Affairs said that they were going to sign it. So we need to know from them. They need to tell the people of Barbados, did you sign it? Because listen to this, guys. I'm hoping that Dave could look in his WhatsApp and see something that came from Montserrat. Listen, the Caribbean is coming together, Mr. SCHAPER and Mr. Franklin. Somebody says, does this remind you of a notorious questionnaire of children in Barbados? And this is of the same Samoa. Inside of it, it says, for example, indicators have been proposed to measure the attitudes of children towards LGBT issues, access to abortion and reproductive health services available to children without parental consent, and the implementation of the controversial comprehensive sexuality education or human rights programs. This is all part of the Samoa deal, the Samoa, that accord. And that is what they are, it is alleged that the country that they have signed us onto for over 20 years. We are locked into that agreement. And, you know, listen to that, Mr. Arthur. What comes to mind? What's going in your mind?
They want to turn Barbados like into another. They want to turn it into a. They want to turn it into another slave state. They want to make everyone a slave and a serf, and not just of your own government, but of these of the United Nations, of these perverse, horrible international institutions. And it's time for the peaceful resistance, as Cleety Vaughn shares there in the comments section. Absolutely, people need to be informed, aware, and outraged, and demand that the nation of Barbados be released from this horrible treaty. There's a number of Caribbean nations who have already taken a stand, including Jamaica, as you mentioned, as well as Trinidad. And it's important for Barbados to take the same stand and say, no, we're not going along with this perversion. We're not going to allow you to corrupt our country just because of a financial matter.
Yeah. Mr. Franklin, I think that you said that this week, you were you led something similar with a group of workers where they didn't go in. And I'm deliberately doing this, Mr. It's going a little different than what we had planned, because what we want to do is to kind of let it sink into the people, because it's years of non-resistance. You understand? It's years of non-resistance, and we have to show them. Mr. Franklin was saying he did something this week, and Mr. Franklin, those workers, they went ahead with you on it.
Yes, they did. These are the workers at the Barbados Revenue Authority, and they had all kind of meetings this morning, trying to persuade them and even scare them into not continuing. But we did it again today.
You had a work action where you and your employees did not go to work. Is that?
But I'm a trade unionist.
Oh,
so,
excellent.
We propose that the people stay at home, call it a sick out, and don't turn up for work. And it was effective, because the Barbados Revenue Authority could not man its offices.
Wow. This is what we need. This is what, if we get every trade union leader, such as yourself, Mr. Franklin, to take a stand and just
stop right there. The trade union leaders are all part of the Barbados Labour Party. In fact, the leader of the largest union, correct me, Mr. Franklin, the Mia Motley, the Prime Minister Mia Motley, has gobbled her up and made her a member of Parliament. So our trade unions have been compromised. The only one that is not compromised, and that is she wanted Mr. Franklin as well, and he told her no. Who would represent the people? Because she wants to have all the power. Right, Mr. Franklin? It's only your union. Only her own. So, but
the last man standing.
Well, you know what?
Standing in the trade
union leaders. Union leaders are, then what needs to happen within the union is that these members, that another group will step up and say, this leader is not representing us. This reminds me of a movie in the United States. It was called On the Waterfront, starring Marlon Brando. And he was a member of a trade union. They worked along the longshore. They worked on the shipping yards. They were longshoremen. And he took a stand, and other longshoremen, they said, we're not going to listen to the union boss anymore. We're going to follow his example. And the workers were able to choose different leadership. That needs to be part of the fight, for sure. And I'm sure those are discussions that have already been taking place.
Well, not here. The people are so disgusted with them that they just withdraw, rather than replace them, get them out.
I see.
People just decided, look, and that is why my membership is growing, because people are saying to the unions, you're not representing us.
So that's it. You have provided a union that people can join. This is good.
Yes.
That would be a great move right there. And that's I would love to see, that would be a thing to start encouraging, that the workers who are not represented any further by these corrupted, compromised union leaders who care about pushing LGBT and giving into these international perverse programs. If the workers say, we're leaving, we're going to go join another union. But you see, there you go. You're already part of the resistance there, Mr. Franklin. You're already doing it.
So the mass resistance has started. We just need the people who have left the unions, because I'm hearing from others too that people are leaving the unions to join Mr. Franklin's union, because when you do that, then we have an organization, right, Mr. SCHAPER? We have an organization that we could mobilize and then get the people out on the streets, or to do the sit-ins, or to do the strikes, or to shut down the country.
We're doing this in the United States.
Is that what you're saying? Tell us more about that.
We have schools that think it's okay to let the students choose whichever restroom they want to go into. And there are students in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, in Missouri. They walk out of the school and they say, we're not going to go along with this. We're not going to let you pervert the privacy of the students. I'm helping parents right now at a local school here where I live. The teacher goes into the students' restrooms to talk to the students. I mean, this is absolutely unbelievable. But what's happening is that the students come together and they walk out. Let's get the students to start coming together. I don't believe the students like this. They don't want this garbage being pushed on them. We've seen students in Massachusetts, a very liberal, very compromised state, and the kids have walked out protesting the Pride months and the LGBT stuff being pushed on them. Tell me, Mr. Franklin and Ms. Weeks, do the teachers have a union of their own as well?
They have two unions.
Okay.
One is firmly in the hands of the government. The other one, I don't know if I don't think they're firmly in the hands of the government, but they don't have any professional staff, and I think that is their biggest problem. There are teachers who work and also try to run the union at the same time, and a lot of them are not trained in industrial relations, so they're not as effective as they could be or should be. But you said something today about teachers going to the bathroom. And I laughed because only yesterday a gentleman came to me, and he got dismissed from his workplace, and he said to me that he went into the ladies' bathroom just to say something to a lady, and he wanted me to represent him. You know, I'm not representing him. I'm very sorry, but I would fire you too. And that is the situation that.
So this was a confused man who thought he was a woman going
No,
into.
No. He didn't. Nothing like that.
Okay.
But he went into the bathroom. He had no calling in there. He's a man.
Exactly.
And he wasn't trying to pretend to be a woman or anything like that. But I'm saying, what are you doing in there? Anybody in there will have to come out. It's one door. They can't go through the back door. And so I said to him, from what you've told me, I would fire you if you were working for me. So I don't see why I would represent you. You see, you have to take those kind of stances and suffer the consequences if there are consequences to you. There are some things I will not do.
Yeah. You know, we've gone past our time with you, Mr. SCHAPER, and I know the people are going to want you to come back. But you know, talk to us about how I saw you were putting. Oh, there's a question here from Trinidad and Tobago. This is another country that's 45 minutes from us. So if you come to Barbados, we have to take you there to eat some doubles and to push some mass resistance while we're eating doubles.
We'd love to do that. We'd love to help out in Trinidad and Tobago as well. I hope you don't mind that I took the initiative. I provided my contact information initially in the chat.
Of course. Please do. I don't see it anymore.
It's passed on. If I were to write it again and then you leave it on the screen, that would be very good.
What we can do, put it in the private chat, and then I'm just going to copy it. And I'm going to put it up for you.
Excellent. Here I go. I'm doing it right now.
So what they're asking is, they're saying their parents are reacting late and are hardly responding. What can Mr. SCHAPER recommend for Trinidad and Tobago?
Okay, so we need to find the parents who are already informed, and we need to start organizing them, whether it's being on radio programs like yours, Marcia, or to start connecting with any local publication or broadcast measure in their country. That's a starting point. What we did when we connected with people in the Cayman Islands, we found out where people were, in which constituency or district they were in, so that they could find out who their MP was, so that they could start pushing back. In the Cayman Islands, this had to do with, they were trying to push same-sex marriage in that country. So I understand, Barbados, you don't have that perversion yet, correct? You don't have two men marrying each other yet. Is that correct? It hasn't gotten to that place, has it?
No, not as yet. They have removed there was a law that it's called the Buggery Law, where it was criminal to be involved in homosexuality, and that law was removed outside of Barbados. We just got it one day and heard that it was gone. And the Attorney General says, well, we don't know, we had nothing to do with it. The only thing is that law, I wish Mr. Franklin could come back on to explain this, but that when they removed that law, Mr. SCHAPER, what happened was that there was another law, and I needed to look for it to send it to you ahead of time. But that law protects children from being abused. So, but that law was struck down as well. This is sexual abuse of children.
Yep.
That law was struck down, and as soon as Mr. Franklin comes back, he will be able to. Okay, he's back. Mr. Franklin, do you remember the law that was also struck down with the burglary law? This is the Sexual Offenses Act.
Sexual Offenses Act.
Can you explain that to Mr. SCHAPER? In the meantime, let me just put up. This is while Mr. Franklin is looking for that law to share with us. I'm going to put up on the screen in a banner. I'm going to put Mr. SCHAPER's email address, and then the number is 7. Just tell me the number again, please. Could you say your number aloud?
Yes, it's I hope that it works. I don't know how the communications or the connections work from islands to the mainland. I hope this works. 781.
Okay, so it's 1781, yes.
474.
474.
3005.
3005. Okay.
Now, maybe I should, you know what? I'm not sure how strong, because it's a special type of a phone, and the connection may not work because it's entirely internet based. So that may be a problem.
Is that the one that we communicate on WhatsApp?
That's a different number. That's a private. Okay. That's a private number that I can't share.
Yes. So let's just do the email then. You think?
Okay, that would work.
That would work.
I didn't think about. So
okay. So it's arthur@massresistance.org.
Why don't we do this? If I put it in the comment, then you can put the comment up. Would that be okay?
The comment, yes, put the comment up, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to type it here now.
Yeah.
There it goes. Okay.
Right, because it's not, I'm not getting it from there.
It says that it's failed to post. I'm not sure why. Interesting.
All right, so very interesting, very interesting. Okay, so let me continue to do that here. Okay, let me do that here now. So
there's maybe Thelma. I see Thelma Yearwood. She's communicating via Facebook. Maybe I can. This would be a very interesting request. Maybe I can send it to her and she can post it.
Yes. Okay, tell her to post it and see what happens, because I'm having trouble as well. Are they onto you too?
Let me see.
So let's see. You found it, Mr. Franklin?
Yeah, you're talking about sex and serious indecency.
Right. Okay. So let me let you wait, because I want the attention of Mr. I see what happened right with it. Okay. What we're doing is making sure that we're trying the best way for you to get the information, okay, on how to reach out to him. And this is if people are those who are interested in doing in being part of the mass resistance, and because you're going to tell us about that, how people could get involved in that.
Okay, I found Miss Yearwood. I know this is a unique situation, and I appreciate her. It's not opens. I don't know why the word opens is there.
It keeps coming up with that. Yeah.
It's interesting. But I just sent to Miss Yearwood via Facebook. I found her Facebook page, and I was able to text her all the information. If she's interested in, if she's willing to post it in her chat, that's fine. There is my email address for certain. Absolutely.
Okay, so that's the email address, guys. Get cracking on the email address.
Please reach out to me right away. I can provide another phone number. It's an office phone number. We have received phone calls from people from the Cayman Islands or from the Virgin Islands. So if someone has that capability, they're more than welcome to call our office. I will provide that. We want to give people multiple opportunities. I provided the phone number also to Miss Yearwood. She's more than welcome to post it as well if she likes to.
Yes.
That's fine.
Okay.
There it is. I hope to hear from as many people as possible. We've been active in Jamaica. Our president visited Jamaica 10 years ago when they were trying to strike down the anti-buggery law in that country, and they were successfully able to maintain it. I think it is obscene and just unbelievable that some court that has no bearing or presence in your own country just decides to sweep away a law. That's outrageous. And it may seem strange to people, why should we care what two consenting adults do in private? But the fact is that sexual matters, they may be practiced in private, but they have public consequences, and everything from childbearing or health issues or the political upheaval which ensues when people undermine the family and want to go after people's children. So these principles, these laws, these customs must be upheld, and Barbadians are correct to be outraged by any kind of abusive power or move by some judicial authority. Outrageous.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Franklin. You have the law, because I wanted to listen to this, Mr. Arthur.
The Sexual Offences Act of Barbados criminalize buggery and serious indecency. And what happened, the court in Barbados struck down those provisions of the law to say that it is unconstitutional to have these things in the law, because for whatever reason the court decided upon itself in Barbados to legislate. Courts don't legislate. And you see, the similar thing happened in Jamaica. The laws sprang from the same British law that we adopted when we were colonies, and those laws remain on the books until such time as they were being removed by Parliament. But we had a problem in Barbados, you see, because Barbados still fancies itself as a Christian society, and government did not want to go down that road, and because they would get a backlash from the churches and the Christian people in this country. So somehow the courts relieved the government of that chore, and the government and the court ruled that this law that was on the books for all these years was now unconstitutional. However, the similar law in Jamaica, the courts struck up a claim. The Court of Appeal in Jamaica said, no, these laws are constitutional because they existed before we had a constitution. So that meant that only Parliament could have changed that law. And we have a Parliament in Barbados that has all 36, so they can change the constitution if they want. But if the government were not in favor of those laws being struck down, there would have been an appeal. So far, the Attorney General has not appealed because that is what the government wanted to happen, and it happened for them, and it happened with them having to dirty their hands. See, but I still believe that the judge was wrong, and I believe that she had no calling out there to legislate for Barbados. Judges interpret laws.
That's it.
They don't legislate, and this was a law on our books. Now, if for some reason it offended the Constitution, as she's claiming, tell me which section of the Constitution that it offends. Because there's a section of the Constitution that says these laws, if they were constitutional, if they would be constitutional, not that they have a Constitution, if they existed before that Constitution, remains valid until such time as we change them. We didn't change them. And we have the Caribbean Court of Justice, who is dancing around that. They're trying to change it for them, and we have no a high court, not even the Court of Appeal in Barbados, striking up those laws, and the government was in stitch. They were happy. You know, they was happy as a pig in mud. I was going to use the other word, but you know what I mean. You know, they were happy because they got what they wanted. And they're boasting, oh no, that Barbados are joined St. Kitts, the Nevis and Antigua, who did similar things with their laws. But we have to say thus far and no further. We got to stop this government, one way or the other, legally.
Legally. Arthur, those of you who are interested, please take down the information. It's Arthur at massresistance.org. And
absolutely. Our website as well, if you don't, I'm trying to share it in the chat. I'll put it in the private chat.
Yes, put it in the private chat.
That would be better.
Yeah.
And then they can visit our website as well, and they can learn more about who we are, what we do, how successful we've been. Mr. Franklin, I would definitely like to communicate with you further. And
well, I have taken now your information already because I intend to do so.
Wonderful. I have great hopes for what you can accomplish in Barbados, what the people did in the Cayman Islands, rising up. Somebody made a comment earlier how there's an effort to try to push hundreds of thousands of new people to come to Barbados. And we know why. The idea is you bring a bunch of people who have nothing but what they're told to do to undermine everything. And that's what they've tried to do in the Cayman Islands.
Repeat that, because I think we need to hear it. You've been saying it, Mr. Franklin, and KEMAR, who's just joined us, they've been saying that, but they probably need to hear it from another tongue, somebody else. So can you say that and explain? I know we passed your time, but we need you to just hang on a little bit. Go ahead.
It's not a problem. I mean, the biggest issue is you have perverse outside interests. They want to import a whole bunch of new people into your country. I saw someone make that comment earlier, and the whole point is that these are people that will just do what they're told and vote for the perverse and destructive powers that be to keep undermining your country, your culture, your community, and your Christian values. We are seeing this problem happening all over the Western world. You have leaders that are giving into these arrogant, distant, unaccountable thinkers and leaders and proponents of these horrible ideas, and they want to push in all of these people, new people, to just undermine your country, to vote in or to keep to establish or solidify the very authorities that are undermining your rights as Barbadians and your community as a country. And you need to stand against it. That's what was happening in the Cayman Islands. It was shocking to me how the immigration, the country's population just doubled, it seemed, in 20 years. And you have all these expatriates who come to the Cayman Islands, and they're the ones who start saying, well, what's wrong with two men marrying? What's wrong with two women marrying? What's wrong with teaching this to our children? These are outsiders bringing these corrupt ideas. And that's not what should happen to any country. Every citizen has a right to say, these are our values, this is what we stand for, and we're not going to allow a foreign authority to push in a bunch of foreigners to undermine our country, our culture, our customs, our traditions. I think it is essential for Barbadians to understand this. And of course, we're going into a different topic when it comes to the immigration issue, but how it hurts wages, how it hurts the environment, how it undermines the political and the cultural hegemony in a country is very serious. This even happens even in the United States, even when there was massive migration within the country. If you had a little city with 1,000 people, and then suddenly it has 10,000 people within a year or two, there's nothing but trouble. There's nothing but uproar and unrest. It's just impossible to make sure that everyone is integrated into those values. And this is the specific goal when it comes to pushing this LGBT madness. Even here in the United States, we have a government that won't even secure our border. And one of their biggest agendas is pushing this LGBT. They want transgenderism everywhere. They want homosexuality everywhere. They push that 6-colored abomination they call a flag on our government buildings. It is, it's unbelievable. It's outrageous.
Yeah. So can you once again, there are two things that I want you to, you talked about the Prime Minister, you know, she's pushing to be the next UN General Secretary, and you're saying to the people of Barbados that, listen, you need to fight back, and there's a way that you might be able to get her attention.
Yes.
And you shared that. What can you repeat that, please?
I think it's important for right away as many people as possible to say, we know that Mia Mottley wants to move on up to a higher position. She wants to be the Secretary General. People need to call her out on it. They need to shame her publicly for wanting to do this, for ruining her own country, and following in the civil disobedience and the non-compliance of many non-violent activist movements. They need to just slow down and stop all of the functions of this corrupt, abusive government, which is ignoring the will of the people, which is undermining the power of the parents, and is harming the children. And this needs to be the concentrated effort of every Barbadian.
Mm-hmm.
One thing, there's one thing, you're not going to be able to shame her. She has none. You know,
what is it? She has no shame?
Oh, yeah, boy.
Marcia, you know, I keep telling you I love this man because he has seen and understood Barbados better than most Barbadians. You know, it might be, he's talking about bringing those people in. You can't bring them in. People ain't got jobs with people that here, so we're gonna find jobs for them. You know.
Yes.
You know, yeah. There should be water scarce. Those people not gonna bathe. You know, but whatever happens, they're gonna take care of them because they need those people to come in and skew things in their direction. And I'm not surprised if a lot of that did not happen in the elections and when you made people citizens of Barbados, because it's becoming quite easy now to become a citizen of Barbados. You know, and also they were proposing, and I don't know how far it's gotten, where they were going to have economic citizenship, where you can buy it.
I know that St. Kitts allows that. Someone, if they drop the right amount of money, they can become a citizen. They get a passport.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, we've gone way over the time that we're to be with you, and we just want to thank you so much. We will have to schedule because this is the first class, okay? The class in mass resistance, nonviolent mass resistance.
Absolutely.
Is what we are talking about. And so we are going to need to invite you back, sir, to come back on. And I know that this video, this recording is going to go far and wide.
We'll make sure of it.
Now. What's the final thing you want to say to Barbados before you go?
I hope to connect with as many of you as possible and to help form a mass resistance there in Barbados. I look forward to doing so. And I think that you'll all serve as a courageous example to many nations around the world.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. SCHAPER, Arthur SCHAPER. It was, you know, it's like hearing Mr. Franklin in a different body. You know, it's like this was a white Mr. Franklin speaking, Dr. Franklin, and he had an American accent. And that's what really happened here tonight. Thank you so very much. We appreciate you coming. Everybody, write down the number and you can contact him. Go straight ahead, contact him. All right, and let's get this going. Non-violent mass resistance. That's the only way out.
Yes.
Only way out for the next 3.5 years. That's the only way out. God bless you. Thank you so much, sir.
Have a wonderful evening. Thank you all.
Thank you. God bless. Mr. Franklin, what was that?
You're telling me? I was hearing an echo. I thought I was talking through that man's voice. You know, he is not here. He is not Barbadian, but he's more in tune to what is happening in Barbados than most Barbadians. He understands what is happening, but he's seen it. You see, He has seen it elsewhere. And he can come and talk to you as like, you know, I hope they listen to him. Just don't take my word for things. No, listen to him. I am making it up. These people need to leave office as soon as possible, if not sooner.
Yes.
Because this last Samoa thing, you know, how could you, after all of this time, you know, it says that they do not care what the Barbadian public is saying. We were crying out. They said, look, no, you can't just go and get into these agreements, pass these laws, and without telling us. And they do it again. We don't matter. We matter every 5 years, and not even so much so because they will get elections purchased anyhow. But that is a pretend that it matters in 5 years, every 5 years. But it is total disrespect of the people of this country. We have norms in this country. You do not change people's norms and beliefs just because you want to. It's the same thing with the education system. You go out there, you see some things that you like, and you rush into Barbados and say, this is what we're going to do. And come up with a chimera, calling it we call it education reform. Doesn't make sense. But Marcy, I'll tell you something. You know, when he was talking about teachers going into the bathrooms, and I remember the last time I spoke to you, I talked about a teacher who sent requests to a male student for his pictures of his genitalia. And the government doesn't see that as abuse.
What do you mean?
In Barbados, we have a situation where a teacher at a secondary school in Barbados asked a male student to take a picture of his genitalia and send it to him. When he went to the Ministry of Education, my understanding is he said that he was just making sport. That is not the type of sport that I will make. But
what you telling me?
What they have done, however, they suspend the man. I see when Bob and Pedro SCHAPER ran an election, they suspended them and had a trial against them in weeks. This man is allowed to lay low. They're going to pay him for staying home until this thing settles. Now, I don't know what they will do, but I suspect that that child will finish school this year, and then when he's no longer in school, his parents will not be longer interested in what's going on at that school, and the teacher will come back out.
But Mr. Franklin, this is why we need the sex offenders list. Good night, KEMAR. And KEMAR is one of those who brought that up on the show. This is why we need the sex offenders list, because that teacher needs to be on the sex offenders list and not be brought back into school after that child has left school. And this is the kind of thing that we have over the years. It's like we live among it, Mr. Franklin, and we believe it's normal. It is not normal. It's not normal.
Well, no, it is normal for us in Barbados. I'll tell you why. When I was a boy at school, a lady my age, when she was a girl my age then, she got pregnant by no less a person than the principal. The principal was allowed, and rather than to go to Jamaica and finish his master's, or do a master's, while they're off. And the Ministry of Education deducted money from his salary every month and paid for that child's maintenance. You know what I'm telling you? It is nothing new. This was happening when I was at school. When I left school in 77. So you understand how long ago this was happening. But we like to bury our heads in the sand and pretend it is not happening here. It does not happen here, but it happens. There's another secondary school where a male, I think it was the principal, that it's alleged that he got involved with one of the students, 14-year-old. They're doing nothing about him either. I'm talking about current events. I'm not talking about something that happened when I was a boy too. You know? And the Ministry of Education prefer to shut these things down because probably they see nothing wrong with that type of behavior where you're going to trouble little children or where you're going to ask things. And the thing is, this teacher that asks this child to send pictures of his genitalia, it is not the first time that he's been held, because, and as a matter of fact, what they did before, he was responsible for an aspect of the school. I'm not, if I say exactly what it is, they will know it's school and things, so I'm not going to say that. But he was given instructions that at no time should you be in the room with any child with the door open, with the door closed. And if the door was closed, the principal, who was his godfather, would run up there and unlock the door. Did nothing about him.
Mm. Wow.
And he survived to come and do it to another and mess around with another child.
Yeah,
and the
because they
Ministry
don't
of
have that
Education
list.
and the Ministry of Education not only don't have that list, the ministry knows, but they do nothing about it.
Wow.
So even if he was not on the list, there was a list and he was not on it, they knew of him. They know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
But you will find teachers being disciplined and chastised for minor things. And I call being a pervert, troubling little boys at any age, because if you were a female teacher, you troubling little boys, you will call you a pervert too.
Yes.
But worse yet, if you are a male teacher making advances to a little boy, and the ministry just tell him, but if you don't come to school this term, you just stay home, and they're paying him.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, when Bob ran in the election, they cut his pay in half, put him on half pay. So perversion is accepted in Barbados, and people don't shun you for it. It seems as though it is promoted. Because if you are allowing it to happen and taking no action against it, when you have proof, then the ministry is complicit.
Yeah. You know, KEMAR, let's bring in KEMAR in this conversation here. Good night, KEMAR. How are you doing? I wonder if KEMAR can hear me. I guess he's not hearing me. But while we wait on him, I have a video here, Mr. Franklin. This is the people rising up, and they created a video. This is the Child Protection Bill group. The Child Protection Bill group in that meets on Saturday. So we're going to meet again this Saturday at 10 o'clock. I got sidetracked. 10 o'clock. We're going to be meeting with the Child Protection Bill, and we're going to also talk about NIS and pension, water, all these different areas. We now have to add the Samoa agreement on somehow to put that in there, because we've got to be able to find a way to come together on that and try to figure it out, because if they really signed that is very, very serious for us. But we have the Child Protection Bill. We have a little thing here, and I'm trying to find it as I'm talking to you. Okay, I think I was looking at the wrong place, and I think it's here now. So just look, just to see what they have done.
What's this? What's this ignorance I see in front of me? I sent school my child so he could get a solid education. Lord knows he need it. He come home telling me he learned about gender and gender identity and how I, his mother, must call he by his correct pronouns. What? Because I don't believe in that ignorance. God created the man for how he should be. What pronouns he telling me about? Now he gonna get a lawyer for me. He mother get a lawyer to tell me like, cause he emotional abuse, and I could be labeled as a child abuser. What ignorance is this? What ignorance is this he bringing before me today? Because I want to raise my child in the right way and teach you the values of the Lord, I could get penalized for this? Father God, no. Barbados, watch out. This can't be for real.
But it could be. This can happen under the Child Protection Bill 2023. It could happen to you.
Or me, grandfathers, fathers, uncles, brothers. It can happen to you.
It could be me.
It could be you.
Barbados, watch out.
Wow. What do you all think of that one? What do you think this is? Let me tell you, when you think that we're not working, the people are working. So this is the Child Protection Bill group that they meet on Saturdays. They had been started meeting earlier than everybody else, and so they wrote this. And you know, they are you know, they've launched it here tonight. So you're going to see it. If you see it on social media, share it. Anybody like it? Sharon says it's nice. Sharon, you like that? I don't know. Kemar, you there? Kemar?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. All right. We were trying to reach you earlier. We weren't hearing you. Yeah, I don't know. You saw that video?
Yeah, I saw the clip earlier.
Yeah. And people are saying it's lovely, it's powerful, and they like it. It's nice. Very good. We'll play it just before we close again. But Kemar, I wanted good night, and I'm sorry for the delay, but we got started a little late in terms of our guests, etc., and got pushed back. But I want to know from you. You know, the speaker before was talking about nonviolent mass resistance, especially because of the fact that we do not have, you know, we don't, as you know, we don't have an opposition in government and so on. What are your thoughts about that? What are your general thoughts about that? I don't know if you heard the speaker, but that's what he was talking about. What do you think that's going to work in Barbados?
Yeah, well, good night to everyone. Thanks again for having me. We've been already mass resisting already in Barbados, starting with the massive protest that we had against the jokes in Bridgetown. We've been doing in terms of roadside parliament. We've been doing the KEMAR Street show, rallies, everything you speak out and encourage the masses not to fall to the government's agenda. That is called mass resistance. Right? We have no set of people no more organized than the show. They're really providing opposition for the people. Right? We often criticize the fact that the persons who are traditionally tasked to representing the people, they are not fulfilling that duty. So somebody had to step up. Somebody had to fill that gap to give another view other than what the government is pushing. And that is our right. That's our constitutional right to have an opposition, to have members of the public who are also not members of political party, but general public to speak out. So from the time that I saw the persons like Winston and Lumumba and Bongo Blights doing the videos and encouraging people to march, and Bridgetown was filled with people that are there against the jokes. I was impressed. That is mass resistance. Okay? So I want to applaud us for what we've been doing. We may not have been as organized as the speaker this evening on that level. Maybe we need to move. That could be the next step in formalizing a mass move of resistance. But it will be is not just to resist the government for resisting it, but in matters of life and death, in matters of faith and conscience, in matters of morality. They're resisting for a cause, not just because they want a particular administration in or particular party. It could be any party that's in. The people have to rise up against any tyrannical agenda. B, G, D, F, it doesn't matter. Right? So I heard the contributions earlier about trade unionism, and we ought to applaud and celebrate Caswell as being the giant among them, standing and not faltering and not selling out his constituents, being his union members, because all of the other union leaders have sold out their movements for political ascension in the Barbados Labour Party. Right? Not just the trade union leaders, the government has gone into the universities, they're paying off the best minds up there. They're going into the professional spaces, paying off the minds up there. They're going into the credit union movements, paying off the PTAs. I mean, they're taking over everything, the airways, the radios. They're investing in people who could influence and manipulate the use of social media. So every space and sphere of influence, the government is using the state resources to maintain and push their agenda, agenda which is going against the fundamental rights of the masses. Right? So one dangerous thing that's coming on the people is the deadline for the digital ID. Right? When they took us to Republic, they actually ended that social contract that Barrow made in 1966 in independence. So when they came to Republic, their mission now was to destroy what independence is, what independence represents, and to destroy the philosophy of being an independent Barbadian. Right? So independence as a right that was given to us through Barrow and the ascension of the Barbados Constitution, when the government actually revoked the 1966 independence order, they actually agreed to usher in a new order, i.e. republicanism, where the Queen and Britain will no longer be the head of state of Barbados, and we switched out a governor general. We now have a president, which is a local head of state. Right? So our local head of state now will not necessarily be the president, because the president is also chosen by the parliament. Right? Our first president was chosen by a parliament, it was not chosen by the people. So that is a president who was elected by a party, but that is not necessarily the president of the people. Right? The same thing like the prime minister. We elect MPs, and out of those MPs, they choose the prime minister. So we've never really had a prime minister voted on by the people and for the people. Right? So prime ministers have been given to us really by the people we've elected in parliaments. Right? So with the impending digital ID and this new constitutional review committee that they're bringing, essentially they're trying to get citizens to give up the freedom that they now have. Right? Because there's no more social contract between government and the people. When you were born, you were given a birth certificate, right? It says that you're Barbadian. And then you got a national registration number, which is your national ID number. And you became Barbadian that way. But now they're forcing you to register for the digital ID to become Barbadian all over again. But what exactly are you signing when you sign on to the digital ID, which would essentially make you a new digital citizen, living in a new digital cashless society? Right? So this is where mass resistance comes in again. Do we keep our freedom as a people? Do we keep our sovereignty as a people? Or do we sign over to the new agenda, i.e. comply to the new digital ID to become a new digital citizen, having a new digital wallet and a new digital passport with social control and a social credit score system? Will we sign over and give over our freedom into such a new movement, right? That will have your bank accounts on there, your passport information on there, your health information on there, your land registration on there, the car registration on there. So you get where I come from. All of who you are, your complete identity as a being, a living sovereign being, will be contained in a central location that the government controls. So the government will not control your identity through the new digital system under a new Republican system headed by the Prime Minister.
Yeah. You know what, Kemar, can I just say something that I was speaking with someone outside of Barbados who's into, works in technology. And they said to me, and I'm hoping to be able to get them on the program, but they said to me that the Barbados ID, the Trident ID that you're describing, it's in the top 5 in the world in terms of being able to, the kind of information that is stored in the ID. When that ID is pinned, he says it becomes the top 5 in the entire world because of how he said that it's up there with China. And so he's in the tech, and it's not that he's even against it. He's just saying, he's just like, oh, so proud of the Barbados ID. And how, so you understand the level of information that they have on us, right? Oh, you're not hearing me?
Yes, I understand.
Yeah,
it's about control. It's about control, Marcia. Because if you do not take the digital ID, you become what they call stateless. So you don't have a state. So because they can't take away your identity. You're Barbadian. You're born here, right? But the new system of law, remember the new system that they're introducing will be a new system of laws. The new system of law takes away the traditional freedoms that we enjoy, right? So this type of system says that if you do not sign on to this digital ID, and the government is saying, or they're not saying really, that this new digital ID is what you call a social contract. And this is no what they will use to render you a Barbadian. So if you don't sign on, you will not be a Barbadian in the eyes of the new set of laws coming into place. Right? So you'll be considered stateless. Right? That is called force. That's forcing you. Right? So when you have systems like this is where mass resistance comes into play. That way the people stand up, the government is forced to drop sinister plots and ideas like this. But if the people go ahead and sign up for these digital IDs to bring themselves and to bring their identities online, that is where the government now has full control over your life. So you're actually signing away your entire life when you sign on to this new digital ID and become a new digital citizen.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So what kind of resistance would you in terms of so we're talking, you said this is another instance where people need to resist in mass for it to work. What are some of what are you suggesting? What are some ideas? Let's be practical.
Leave the people's ID exactly where it is. Do not go and sign any paper to give away your identity. You are no longer citizens of independent Barbados. That is over. That was repealed. That is gone. Right? So when you sign on, you're actually giving over yourself back to this slave system, and you are agreeing to tell the government, well, on my bank account, on my house, on my everything, right? So don't go, leave it, use whatever other means you can to do business, which they will eventually try to put pressure on you by outlawing and restricting certain things that if you don't have a passport a passport or anything will not do. So essentially they're going to outlaw the passport and say you can't use a passport for certain things. You still require the digital ID, or they can say you require 2 forms of ID, the national ID and one else. All of that's called social pressure. So the people need to push back against that, speak out against that, rally against that, and to basically force the government's hand to drop this. But as you said, this type of system is up there with the most type of draconian social systems in the world. Like, we don't need to go this route. There are much better digital ID systems out there and that are working in countries that they don't attempt to control the people's wealth. But this is all about the government indebting the country to the IMF. And we as a country that don't have resources, they can't monetize oil. They can't monetize bauxite. They can't monetize gold. If they had a rich country, if Barbados was a rich country with resources, the borrowing of that debt could have been placed on natural resources, but we don't have that. People of our resources, or they're putting the debts on the people. Right? You would often hear the Prime Minister say that the commercial banking system got over some amount of billions in savings, right? 9 billion in savings, just sitting there in the sector doing nothing, the commercial bank sector doing nothing, and they ain't getting the interest on it. The government sets the policies on interest rates. So if the government was serious about it, they will raise the monetary interest rate limit back up and force the banks to give people higher interest on the loans. But they're not doing it, right? They're just begging the banks to do it, and the banks are not complying with that. But the government has the power to change interest rates on deposits, but they're not doing it. What the government is doing is setting government policy and cutting the people's income, discretionary income, and forcing you to spend your savings for consumption. Right? Because when they... Go ahead, Carlos. Go ahead.
Like, KEMAR, you've been saying these things, right? But it is worse than you've been saying, you know. You remember every major institution in Barbados got hacked. You remember? Hospital.
Yes, every government institution, including the police.
Yeah, every major institution got hacked. This is going to be an electronic system that can be hacked. If we have systems already that have been hacked by people, and we like for instance, the hospital up to now, they find my blood work, and you know how long ago that was. So just say your digital ID is hacked, and that the ID has your banking information, everything else. From 1 minute you'll be you will got substantial savings in the bank, and the next minute you'll be a pauper, because they will access the information, and the government, because I don't trust any government institution to hold my information for me because of their priorities, because of how they've been behaving in the past. They are getting into things that they cannot manage.
But before I lose my train of thought here, you know what is very well. What the government is intended to do here is to force you to pin those digital ID cards onto your savings accounts in the banks. This is the money, the billions of dollars that the Prime Minister keep talking about. So when they pin the ID to the system, government now has access. So I think it was Scotland or Greece or one of these big countries, what the government did when they had to pay back IMF is that they just dip into the people's account and took out the money.
But
right?
Which country was that? Where was that?
I think this was in Scotland.
No, it
And
was Greece. It was Greece, I think.
not Greece. Greece is still in I think it was in Scotland when they jailed all of the guys, including the people in the central bank. It's a documentary online that you could go and watch it. But they were using the central bank to manipulate the market, right? So they actually went into the accounts of the people and took up the money to pay back the IMF, you know.
But that has been done in Barbados already.
Yes, when the nurses went in Carrollton.
No, yes, that too. But you remember those people who had government paper and monthly wiped them out? They take up your money and decide that I'm going to pay it back to you, or give you pittance on the dollar that you were getting.
Right. And that only happened in Russia, Ukraine, and Uruguay. Only 3 countries ever in the world to ever restructure treasury bills.
You know, so they have already done it. Those actions were the testing of the waters to see how it would work, and the Belgians did not, and then the courts went along with them too. You know, because you took up my money. Money is property. According to the laws of Barbados, money is property, and if you're going to take up somebody's property, you got to compensate them. If you take up my land, you got to give me a fair value for my land.
Right.
But
that's
so
right.
it is going to be impossible under our laws to take up people's money, so they're going to ignore our laws, because you have to give back people compensation, and the compensation that the courts know in Barbados is money. So if you take up my money, you cannot give me back money compensation. So that means they have no intention of following the laws of Barbados. They have no intention. They're going to do what they like, and they have done what they like, and they've got away with it. Because, as I tell you, and I don't know if they won't hold me in contempt of court or whatever, but I have no confidence in the courts of Barbados whatsoever. Because I have seen where my case, where even the Court of Appeal says you have to give the transcript of the case, and the Court of Appeal ordered them to do it, and they ignore the order of the Court of Appeal. So when you can ignore the highest court in Barbados for Barbados, what else you wouldn't do? And the judges were so nonchalant when they said, well, you know, we're going, you've got to ask the registrar to do this. No, you order them, and if they don't do it, you hold them in contempt. They're not going to do that. I put the government in court. We lost, and we want to say, but because I argue, and I'm not saying that I'm 100% correct or anything like this. All I'm saying is my belief is that the judge issued her decision. She read from it, and then she said it had some typographical errors, and she will give us back in 30 days. She will correct them and give back in 30 days. That went into 13 months. And when she did issue the written judgment, I said, I don't recognize that from the thing that she read. So I wanted the transcript to verify my belief. All I wanted to say, well, look, I don't recognize what she read from what I'm reading now. So I want the transcript, and I can't get it. I can't trust them because I have been a victim of it. This is the case when I fought against the government with the COVID directives and stuff. Look, and they said it was an urgent matter, and she took more than a year to come and give us the decision. And then the decision, I said, I do not recognize it. I asked my lawyer, I said, listen to me, I have read this decision, and I could be wrong, but I'm reading things in there that was not said in the court. As far as I remember, it was not said in the court. So I want to see the decision. I want to see the transcript. That is fair. Let me have some confidence in the court. Let me restore my confidence in the courts by giving me what I'm duly entitled to receive. I'm not asking them for any state secrets. I'm asking them for what was said in the court. And mind you, it was recorded by transcriptionists, recorded on Zoom, recorded on everything else. Just give me copies of the thing. And they would say, oh, I was mistaken. I am sorry, I made a mistake. But they're not giving me that access that which I have no confidence in them.
Yeah.
Okay. Kazo, you say some very important things there, and I just want some stuff from my alternate views. When you spoke about the treasury bills, and it says in chapter 17 here that the government passed the debt settlement bill, which says that if the government owed you any money whatsoever, any legal claims on the government, that they were going to pay you in bonds. So I started by saying that the government, the same three countries, in Russia 1998, Ukraine 1998, and Uruguay 2003, are the only countries in which a government ever restructured the citizens' treasury bills. And that the danger of investment in government paper is the high chance of another debt restructuring or reprofiling, coupled with the fact that the government is facing a cash shortage. And the likelihood of local creditors being repaid by the government on time is extremely low, where the precedent that is set via parliamentary rule. And the debt restructuring bill gives the government the power to default on local debt and institute a collective action clause. And this collective action clause says that only 75% of creditors need to agree for any new changes, for any new debt restructuring. Four institutions own 75% of government debt. So the government made its own decision to default on the debt and said that it consulted with the creditors. But the four institutions were owned by government.
NIS, National Insurance, Central Bank, their own. I was the other one, KEMAR.
People are saying you're a little low, Mr. Franklin. I'm not sure why they're saying that you're low.
No, that's probably because it was. I was thinking and talking at the same time and trying to remember. Because what has happened, right? Government did not go into a contract with anybody, with a group of people. They made a contract with you. So they could not say to you, if 75% of the people say yes, then it is yes. No, because I didn't say yes and I have a right. So that was another scam. But this government has been engaging in a lot of tricks and deceit.
What they did as well, the four institutions were the NIS, the Central Bank, the government issued treasury bills, because the government had a large percentage on investments. The government issued treasury bills, and First Caribbean and a couple of the banks that they were able to instigate to say yes. Like banks that they had direct influence over. So by extension, you end up with 75% of the creditors. So the insurance took hits, the credit unions took hits, the financial houses, the capital finance, so those private ones, they took hits as well. Right? So what happened also is that the same debt settlement bill created a circumstance where these bonds that the government issued, if they took out your land and a land acquisition, they don't owe you any money, they don't owe you bonds. Right? Look at what they did in Miss Ram. She still have not received any money yet. If you sue the government and the government owed you money in any legal case, the government don't got to pay you any money. They're giving you bonds. Right?
Bonds are not legal tender. So the government can't do that. I made that point when I was a senator, and nobody refuted that. Because those bonds, they can take them up and do like they do with the treasury bills too. They can restructure them away too. I want money in my hands so I can spend. I cannot take those bonds to a popular supermarket and say, the cashier, I want by X, I want by Y, I want by Q. It must be legal tender.
Yeah, what's bad about it, right? Is that these bonds are junk bonds, you know. They could only be redeemed at one place. That is central bank. They can't even be redeemed in the private financial sector like the banks, the commercial banks. They don't want them. The credit unions don't want them. The insurance don't want them. The finance houses don't want them. So as the government using the central bank to find us way to smartly print money as well, right? Because you're issuing a government bond, and the only place you can cash it is a government institution. So it shows that it is not worth it, right?
But look, but see, them and the IMF cheated and deceived the people of this country, because you remember they said that they're going to pay you part of your salary in bonds, and they're going to allocate certain amount of bonds to you.
That was illegal. That's illegal.
Yeah, I know, but what they did, they central bank to buy all, because the people were not accepting it. So the central bank was there creating money for the government. When, in fact, under the IMF program, they couldn't do that. But they were still doing it under the wide open eyes of the IMF. This whole thing is a scam. So when people tell me, one, our economy has grown and all kinds of stuff, and people at IMF had signed off on it, I don't believe them, because they have gotten the government, former Miss Motley, to buy into their nonsense, and they are supporting her. He who pays the piper calls the tune. I do not believe them. Barbados talking about we experience growth in what? How many things we manufactured and sold? How much things we sell? We sell a few things, a hot sauce, a couple of little things that you would think one. No. You can't borrow growth. And the money that we have, that they are boasting about, is borrowed money. When you borrow money, you got to earn that amount of money and then find someone to pay back. So you're rich. You don't have to be rich with borrowed money. And that's what the government is trying to tell us, that we borrow money so we experience growth. Because show me which industry in Barbados is producing that money. Because don't tell me the hotel industry. Because the hotel industry money don't set for the Barbados. The hotels, the people have agents overseas, owners overseas, that you book on some website and the money is paid to that website. Then you have a situation where they're sending enough to pay salaries and a few bills. And then also, I know of hotels who take the service charge that is normally part of the wages of the workers and convert those to the hotel's own use. I complained about that also in the Senate. And it was because the workers will call me and complain and say, my service charge was X, Y. I said, so that don't make no sense. Why? Because the hotel's been stealing it. Because they don't have enough money in Barbados to do their business, so they take the workers' money. So where is the growth? Where is that money coming from? If the hotels are bringing it in, what other industry in Barbados? What other productive sector that is earning this money, that is causing the government to be so boastful to say, oh, we are experiencing growth? Growth in what? Construction? Tourism? We know the numbers are down. It's construction. I ain't seeing nothing building right now. Not a lot. So where is this growth coming from? And they're saying, oh, we have experienced growth. We didn't experience the growth. And I am sorry, but they just listen to government pronouncements and believe them without analysis, without thinking for themselves.
Caswell gone muted and not hear you at all. Right. I'm not hearing you, Caswell.
We're not hearing you, Caswell. Check your microphone to make sure you're plugged in, and go on and come back in and do it.
Right. In the meantime, Marcia, I wanted to address something that Caswell brought up. When the government actually forced a cut in public servants' wages, and they called it the Forced Savings Plan. They changed that name from the forced, hear the word forced. They changed that name from the Forced Savings Plan to the BOSS program, the Barbados Optimal Savings Scheme, right?
Right.
And this boss program was an illegal cut in public servants' wages, where the government was automatic. Right? Oh, right. I can go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
Right. Where the government was smartly cutting the wage bill to the IMF program by saying that they were reducing public servants' wages in the form of bonds and then returning the investment to them later. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So with the boss program, well, no, it failed. The first boss program did not collect the amount of money the government wanted. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They were not giving you a choice if you wanted to participate in the program or not. They were just taking out your money and saying that if you don't want to participate, then you're going to get a rebate down at the central bank on it. And that's illegal. You can't cut public servants' wages to their disadvantage. What they should have done was to give an increase, but pay the increase in bonds, as opposed to cutting it and paying the cut in bonds. You were to give them extra. I said, well, you won't get the extra cash in your hand, but you will get bonds which can be redeemed later for more money. That was the thing to do, as opposed to cut the public servants' wages. Where the setup for the public servants came was that when you have bonds, any type of bond, that bond could be traded on the stock exchange, the Barbados Stock Exchange. The commercial bank should want to buy that bond. Insurance firms should want to buy that bond. Credit unions should want to buy that bond. Private fund managers, hedge funds should want to buy those bonds if you have what you call a tradable bond market in the country. But because the government actually destroyed the bond market in the restructuring, the boss program was dead before it got off the shoot. So that's why boss 1 and boss 2 failed, right? So the first boss program that they came up with says that 45% worth of bonds were left unused in the first month. So only 55% of the people participated in the program. And the numbers never got any better than that. Right? So what they were saying is that they wanted to use this cut in public servants' wages to go on what you call capital works programs for investment. So the Hayat and the other domestic projects that the government wanted to finance, they were cutting our wages for that. But it didn't work because they didn't raise the money. Right? These bonds that the government are giving out are complete junk. They have no usage anywhere in the world. They have no benefit to the people anywhere. And I would like the people to stop going and wasting the money, because the government can up and say tomorrow, well, we're getting another debt restructuring, we're going to postpone payment for another 10 years. None of the people whose bonds are restructured in that first debt restructuring locally, they started to get back any money yet, other today. Clico. Remember the Clico bondholders? The bondholders still have not received any money. Right? Again, junk. Can't be spent anywhere, can't be done. So what the government is doing is actually destroying what you call money market, trying to force everybody onto the digital system, digital money, digital wallet. And that's why they brought on money. And that's why we have a digital central bank dollar in Barbados. But the government is intended to take everybody through digital ID onto a central bank digital currency with a digital wallet, where all of your assets are intended to be put into this digital wallet. Everything you own, everything who you are, everything. Because the government is actually monetizing the people, Marcia. So they're putting a debt bill on your head. So for every person in Barbados, every single person in Barbados has what you call a debt bill on their head. Right? I made a post on Facebook recently, and Professor Richard Drayton from England said that the recent IMF bill, and he actually worked it out to be approximately 1.6 billion. He said that amount of debt actually equates to $6,000 more per debt. per every person in Barbados. So imagine the $4 billion that they borrowed for, which equated to $5 billion since the government came in 2018. Right? If $1 billion equates to 6,000, multiply that by how much years the government has been in, because they borrowed $1 billion almost every year since they
Right.
were in. And you will see the debt per person that the government has put on the head of every Barbadian.
You know what, Kima, because we're in the stage now that I'm thinking of ways of communicating this in pictures. You understand what I mean? If we can get an artist, Mr. Franklin knows them because they did some brilliant, the work on the banner, the placard, to put the debt on the head of the person and to put how much dollar it is. Just like if you see people as far back as you can see them, and you see them with the debt on their head. However, you understand what I mean, Kimar? That you can see it. I think we need visuals now. What do you think?
Yeah, pictures worth 1,000 words, they say.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
but the thing is, too, one thing I want to ask Kemar, and I want to, but I ask
And
everybody
we
on
have
here.
5 minutes. We have
I
5
know,
minutes.
I just going to be, I'm going to
Yeah.
get 2 minutes, a minute and a half. What will happen to those vendors down Cheapside? Because that's where I do most of my shopping on Saturdays after I leave the office, or I go down to the Cheapside and I get my vegetables fresh. And I go to the fish market and I get my fish. And you know what will happen to those people, because those people will not have any accommodation for those digital currencies or whatever, the central bank, digital dollar. My belief is that the government come up with these things without thinking about the repercussions, what will happen to the average fellow. They don't what are the consequences of my action. I think government, like me and everybody else, should say, when I propose a course of action, I always ask, what is the worst that can happen if I do this? I don't think the government has ever thought about that. What they do, they come up with these ideas, people give them these ideas and they run with them without thinking about the average fella. And I tell you something. I see women downtown with sometimes enough stuff in their tray that I would buy all one time, because there's a lot to sell, but they try to make $1 so as to keep their head above water. And you can involve them in this mass of confusion, because sometimes you see those people, and as soon as they get enough money, they're going to shop. I was in the supermarket one day, and this woman came to me and she said she doesn't have anything. If I could help her with some money to buy a couple of things, and I said no. So I gave her $50, and I genuinely believe her, because she came back. She said, "Oh, good, I can get some meat tomorrow." This was a Saturday evening. She said, "At least I will get some meat for tomorrow." And I'm in the line stand. The woman come back with the things that she bought with $50 to show me. She said, "Look, see what I get." I said, "You don't have to do that." She said, "No," and she said, "You want to talk to my mommy?" And she we call her mommy. She said, "Mommy, to tell me thanks." Am I going to give her a digital $50? You know what I mean? This is horrendous. This government is not thinking about the people who put them there or who they say put them there.
Because this is not about that, right? But as it relates to vendors specifically, I brought that point. The government is
2
bringing in
minutes. 2 minutes, Kimar.
yes, the government is bringing in a national vending policy, right? And this national vending policy, I could bet you, is going to include a pilot project that all vendors, all registered vendors, are going to have a digital payment system, right? And that digital, once you have a cell phone, they're going to market it to you and say it can be run from your cell phone. So the government will roll out a national app and allow these vendors to put the app on their phones. They're going to load it up, send out people in the field to help them set it up, get it on. And if you want to buy from the vendors now, you are going to have to set on the app on your phone that you could pay whatever money you have to pay over to them. The same thing like what they're doing with the transport board and the digital payment system. These payment systems are all through Africa,
Yeah.
Ghana, Romania, not Romania, Rwanda. Sorry, I actually wrote an economics paper on Rwanda and the development of digital technologies in the Rwandan system. But what actually happened in these countries is that the government actually further expanded the underground economy because the people don't have the education or they were not taught, they don't have the skills, and they're not really with this technology thing, right? So they actually push the people on the ground, and the people are just finding ways to get around using this digital payment system. So the IMF just looked at it as they're trying to make everything more efficient, do less printing, go cashless, get everything online, so that the government does not have to pay all of this money to transfer, so they can essentially privatize all of these institutions and move them off government books because the government is supposed to go completely paperless, cashless by 2030.
Wow. This is something that we have to continue because the deadline is when is the deadline, KEMAR, for the IDs? Is
The end of
January?
January.
Yeah.
The end of January. The end of January. I haven't gotten any, and I don't have an intention of getting any.
Well,
Up until
you have
now,
a brother there. You have a brother. I want none
yes,
either.
you're not getting any, and because of I have a passport. The last time I checked, and I will continue to use my passport, right? So I'm not getting any, not at this moment. Yeah. So but everybody remember the deadline is then. What are you going to do? And I often say to people, don't wait. You have to plan out what's your plan of action, right? What is your plan of action? Because they want you to comply. This is what
Right.
we talk about, the mass resistance, where
Martha, just want to
deciding
say
that,
one last thing
yes.
on the passport issue. They were so unprepared to go to a republic that if you look into your passport right now, it still says issued by the Governor General of Barbados. I highly doubt that they're issuing passports issued now by a president and the session of a president. That's how unprepared they were for this.
It's still the same thing, saying the same thing. Well, folks, we've come to the end of the program. We're celebrating, supposed to be celebrating this month, and there's nothing. We're not seeing anything on nothing. Did they start to put anything up in town yet? Anybody knows? Mr. Franklin, they start to put up anything for independence or any?
A few things here and there, a few scattering things. But I'm not seeing the what used to happen in the past where everybody should get involved and everybody was. I'm not seeing it.
You're not seeing, the spirit is not there.
No, because only today I saw a post from Irene for Ghana talking about Sharon School has some program for Republic Day, Independence Day. So
Yeah, I saw that.
they are going after the mighty little ones. You know, the little ones are not
Yeah.
much for independence.
It's always they go after those children. But we're going to be back again tomorrow night, Friday, November 17th. We'll be on, and KEMAR and Caswell, we're going to have some Jamaican lawyers are going to be on to talk about the Samoa Agreement. You know, they're going to talk about their process and what they did in Jamaica, and to tell us about the parts of the agreement that they had problems with. We're going to see if we can get anybody on from Trinidad as well, from the government or a lawyer in Trinidad, because Trinidad, I was told, that's what I was told up to the time I was coming on, that Trinidad did not sign. I was told that Guyana did not sign either. So we're going to get as many of those persons to come on to share about the talk to us, and we can, we can ask them questions, KEMAR and Caswell. We want to be on with them, from early, and we get in the conversation with them and have that rapport with these lawyers, to know exactly what did they see in the document, the Samoa document agreement, that why they didn't sign it, and why Jamaica would have put out such a statement, a serious statement that they put out about it. Namibia as well didn't sign it, so we want to talk to them. We had just a misunderstanding. Attorney Trisha Watson will not be on Friday, so instead we're going to have these Jamaican laws on talking about the Samoa agreement. On Sunday, if anybody's seen a video going around with a Guyanese, they're having a discussion in Guyana, and there's a lady on there telling the host to send she back. They don't want the Prime Minister Mia Motley in Guyana because they believe that she got forked tongue, and they don't want her there. And that woman, she's actually I think she's a senator. I have to get her correct title, but she's going to be on the program. She's confirmed for Sunday, so she's going to be coming on for Sunday afternoon, right? So we have some interesting thing happening. So Friday, we're going to be on talking with these lawyers about the Samoa agreement, and then Sunday we will have that young lady on from Guyana who was telling PM Motley to leave the country. So once again, as Nigel is saying, we had a very interesting and informative show tonight. And yes, it was really, really good. And we're going to see you again on Friday night when we have the Jamaicans on. So thank you so much, Mr. Franklin. Thank you, KEMAR, for coming on. And we continue to educate the people. Thank you so very much.
Good night.
And have a good night. God bless. Bye-bye.